Hi, everyone. Welcome to Yachting International Radio's first online forum. I am thrilled to have you all here join us for this groundbreaking event, streaming live on social media and available on demand for those who registered. Over the next 2 days, we'll be diving into some of the most pressing mental health topics in yachting. Our esteemed panel of accredited professionals who are already making waves with their podcasts, courses, and other projects on these subjects will lead us through insightful discussions. You'll have the opportunity to gain practical insights and engage in meaningful conversations that can truly make a difference in your daily lives and in your careers. Here is an overview of what the sessions are for today. We'll start with Karine, the crew coach on mental health first aid. We will continue with Hugo Ortega from Superyacht Sunday School on dealing on board with depression in a moderated conversation with Claire Hagen. Following that, we will have a discussion on body shaming with Deirdre Colgan from Nautilus Yachtwear and Emma Kate Ross from Seize the Mind, also moderated by Claire Hagen. We will finish the day with a wellness session by Geraldine Hardy as she takes us on a journey through a guided meditation. If you have any questions throughout the whole session, please send them in the comments on whatever social media platform you're tuning in from, and we will do our best to answer as many questions as we can while allowing our speakers to cover their insights they have prepared for you today. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming Karine from the Crew Coach.
Hello, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be here with you all today. And I just want to say a quick thank you to Yachting International Radio for putting on such an important forum. In addition, for you guys and showing up to such an important cause, because we can all become agents of change by participating in forums such as these. So what I'm going to do is present my screen and talk about mental health first aid. So before I begin, a little bit about me. My name is Karine Rayson. I am South African, but I live in Australia now. My background is in psychology, organizational psychology, and counseling. I used to work on super yachts myself over 10 years ago now. And then I worked in maximum security prisons across Australia, doing counseling, doing group therapy, writing programs, and so much more. Then I have already seen well over 1,000 crew for counseling. And what's very interesting to note that 50% are men. The first year that I launched, it was predominantly females. The crew coach has been around for a very long time, 15 years now. So we're well established in the industry. And I am a bit of a workaholic because I absolutely love what I do. I have a bit of a confession. I'm normally in bed at this time. So if I start slurring my words, I do apologize. Okay, so I would love for you to grab a pen and paper if you have one handy, because we're going to be doing a few group activities. But something for you to think about. What is important for you on board? Is it to build collaborative and harmonious teams, to improve self-care and resilience, knowing your vessel supports mental health, knowing your workplace is psychologically safe? Ideally, I can see the chat, but unfortunately I can't. But if you are able to engage in a chat box and put a number there, either 1, 2, 3, or 4, which is most important to you. If they are all important to you, please put all. Right. What is the difference between mental health first aid and mental health awareness? So mental health awareness is about identifying mental health issues. Mental health first aid is about delivering the appropriate care, whether someone is starting to experience a mental health issue or a pre-existing one is coming up for them. So whether they are noticing the signs of anxiety or they are having a panic attack. We offer a Seafarer specific mental health awareness course and mental health first aid course. What's very exciting and new development within our industry is that Guest IAMI is looking to develop their own specific, unique mental health awareness course for yachties. So that's really, really important to make it specific. Okay, so when you look at mental health awareness, what we're trying to do is to break the stigma. We are increasing your confidence in being able to identify mental health issues, because if you're not able to pick them up or identify them, then how are you able to deliver the appropriate support? And then being able to recognize burnout and how to manage stress, very important in our industry. And then knowing the causes of psychological, see, it's happening for me, I'm slurring my words because I'm so tired, psychological injury on board. Okay, so we will discuss a few of these things. Now, according to the World Health Organization, mental health is about making a positive contribution. It is about being able to deal with normal stresses of life. So if you're finding yourself in a situation where you're struggling to cope with those normal stresses, then there might be something going on for you, and it's probably best for you to seek professional help. Okay, so because I can't see the chat, it might be a little bit difficult for me to be able to engage in this. But what I want you, I don't know if Andrea, you're able to help me by reading some of the comments. So what I want you to think about is to share examples of behaviors on board that can threaten crew well-being specifically. Perhaps note a few down. Andrea, can you give me some feedback, please, whether you're able to see a chat or if we have a chat?
Yes, we are seeing a chat, and the comments will appear right below, like Scott Kidd.
Awesome. So what does Scott have to say in terms of behaviors on board that can threaten crew well-being? What would that look like? So it can look like, I'll help you guys out. It can look like bullying. It can look like working really long hours. What else do we have, Andrea?
I will add comments that will answer your questions. Like right now, one is harassment.
Brilliant. Thank you. That is one as well. Okay, so I'll help you guys out. Stress and burnout, isolation and loneliness, anxiety and depression, substance abuse, sleep disorders, relationship strain. So think about long distance relationships you may have on board. Career uncertainty, we know that we work in a very volatile working environment specifically. You might not have that job security, age discrimination, and bullying and harassment, which was identified. Okay, so what I'm going to do is share a couple of real life examples of from a survey that I released about a year ago. I haven't released this information with the public. Obviously, these case studies are anonymous. So I just want to highlight how situations on board can create mental health issues, and mental health issues do not discriminate. You don't have to have a pre-existing mental health issue. It can occur or develop as a result of a particular situation. So this person said, after over 9 years in the industry, I've had many terrible experiences, from rape by a fellow crew member that happened away from the boat, with whom I had to continue working with until I had enough and resigned after being told I wasn't believed, and I left the vessel feeling completely abandoned and unsupported. I never got a reference from said vessel or any crew member, and honestly never felt so low in my life. I've also had a vessel that forced me to have an abortion by the captain when I fell unexpectedly pregnant, even after taking protection. I was made to have an abortion and they fired me straight after, didn't pay me, and my union took them to court. This is to name a few experiences. I'm now a very proud chief stew that has taken the bads and tried to turn them into positives, but I still don't forget how I felt or how I've been treated in the past. I've also seen numerous discrepancies and misconduct during my time that have made me more aware that something in the industry needs to change for the better. Okay, unfortunately, this image is not coming up. Right, so I'll highlight a couple here as well to just demonstrate how these incidences have affected the crew's mental health. I have since left the yachting industry as I didn't feel it was benefiting my mental health. It took me a long time to recover from this incident. Ongoing trauma, anger, and scared. It was shocking and very hard to digest. I was shaking for some time, and it was hard to sleep for a while. Still get nightmares time to time, and took a while to get confident on a boat again. I got anxiety and got into depression after this, trauma and nightmares, total burnout, low self-esteem, worried to come back to work again. It has changed my life. I had to live hiding a big part of me. My confidence is not completely, and I don't know if I want to continue down this route I once loved so much. Okay, so a recommendation from a chef. They have said that they recommend that all HOD, and I think all crew, should go on courses that teach them firstly how to treat people and how to spot anybody that might be suffering with mental health problems. This particular crew member lost a friend, a bosun, to suicide. I've seen so many instances where people are just encouraged to toughen up or go out for a drink and drown their sorrows. So I did interview Clive's mum and his two sisters, and you're able to watch that replay on Yachting International Radio. I highly recommend that you do catch that replay to give you insight into some of the behaviors on board that can create depression or anxiety or other mental health issues, and the ripple effect of suicide. Okay, so what can we do about it? Firstly, stigma. Okay, so together we can collectively break the stigma. Feelings of shame and hopelessness and isolation. Reluctance, this is the effects of stigma, reluctance to ask for help or to get treatment. Lack of understanding by family, friends, or others. Also judgment. So we should be having these conversations about mental health on a regular basis in the crew mess, where we could, collaborate, collectively discuss particular mental health issues and how we have personally experienced it. It's very important to learn vulnerability. Bullying, physical violence or harassment, self-doubt, the belief that you'll never overcome your illness or be able to achieve what you want in life. How do we address the stigma? Through what we're doing now, education and training, accessing support, and leadership involvement. So mental health first aid will certainly teach you to become a better leader. In the mental health first aid course, what you learn are fundamental skills around communication. So that includes active listening, being mindful of what is being said, and truly listening to the other person. Sometimes we can easily talk over other people and give advice rather than listening. Being genuine, being non-judgmental, using silence, don't feel the need to be talking all the time. Paraphrasing, asking open questions, summarizing. These skills show that you are really listening to the other person. Another big one is empathy. Okay, so going back to stigma and words and language. Have a look at this diagram. How often have you heard the words, suck it up and get over it? Man up. You just need a drink. You're too soft. You're a loser. Don't talk about that. Girls want a tough guy. What we need to be doing is challenging the language that we use, and that's in our control. I don't even like using the word mental health issues because I don't see it as an issue. It's just something that we're going through or experiencing at the time. So what we need to do is reframe these terms and rather use, you're not alone. You're allowed to feel this way. You don't always have to be strong. It's okay to show more than just anger. You don't need to carry everything alone. I'm here to listen. So take a moment to think about what you can do. What change in behavior perhaps you are open in engaging in. One useful change would be to promote a culture of asking how your colleague is. Okay, so when you pass each other, whether it's in the corridor, in the crew mess, and you say, "Oh, how are you? I'm good. I'm fine. Thank you." Get into the practice of saying how you really feel. So use the words happy, sad, lonely, frustrated, angry. Pick up on some specific feelings that you're experiencing in the moment, because then you are promoting a culture of acknowledging how people are feeling, and then you start to have real conversations. Causes of psychological injury in the workplace. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out 12 points. What I want you to do on your piece of paper is write down the numbers from 1 to 12, and each point that resonates with you, I want you to give yourself a little tick. Okay, number 1, high job demands, long hours, fast pace of work, time pressure, extended vigilance, or monitoring psychological, emotional efforts. Have you ever done this in your career in yachting, or experienced this? Long hours, fast-paced work? I'm sure you all have. Okay, so this can contribute to psychological injury. Low job demands, little to do. So you might be you've winterized the boat, you're in the winter season, there's not much going on. You might be doing inventories and you're finding it a bit like a Groundhog Day. So it's very, very monotonous, and your job's not stimulating. Low job control, duties are tightly managed or micromanaged. So this comes from poor leadership. Poor support, limited support or assistance from peers, lack of training. Poor workplace relationships, bullying, discrimination, conflict. And I hear about these all the time, unfortunately. Low role clarity. You might not know exactly what is expected of you, which makes you feel a bit apprehensive and nervous. Poor organizational change management. So not hearing information when you should be hearing information. Maybe information is kept from you, and that creates that feeling of uncertainty. Low recognition and reward, so lack of positive feedback. Poor organizational justice, so lack of fairness. Poor environmental conditions. Isolated work, so there might only be a few people on board. Again, might be the winter period and they don't need a full crew. And perhaps you're with a crew that speak another language, and that could be incredibly isolating. Trauma exposure. It can be violence. It could be harassment, sexual assault. So I'm just wondering in the chats if you can count your ticks. On average, how many ticks do you have? Are we getting any numbers, Andrea? Or people a bit shy?
Not yet. I will
Okay. Okay, so burnout. Burnout is prolonged stress, and I've experienced it in my career. It creeps up on you when you least expect it, okay? So it's very important to be in tune with how you're feeling. Sometimes you can misread burnout as stress. So what I've done is I've created a burnout quiz that I think Andrea has the link to. It will give you a score, and then with that score, you'll be able to interpret your results. And I think that's me done, because my slides aren't doing anything further. So I'm going to see if I can stop. I just want to make sure that I've completed everything. I'm pretty sure. So I'll stop sharing my screen and then I'll hand it over to Andrea. If you do want to reach out for more information, you are most welcome to send me an email or message. I'm more than happy to help.
Karine, thank you so much for that workshop to mental health first aid. Guys, we're going to give you a 2-minute break before our other session, but stay tuned. Hi everyone, welcome back. I am super excited for our next session about dealing with depression on board with Hugo Ortega. Explore effective methods for recognizing and managing depression while working on a yacht. The session will cover coping strategies, support system, and ways to maintain well-being in a challenging and confined environment. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Hugo Ortega.
Hey, thanks for having me, Andrea. It's Hugo here.
Thank you for joining us. We actually have an exciting twist for you guys. I will be here filling in for Claire for a few minutes. This is what happens with live broadcasts. She's in Monaco, had a hotel issue, and well, here we are.
No.
So, Hugo, let's start off with you introducing yourself a little bit and telling us what are your thoughts on mental health and basically why do you wanted to be in the session today.
Perfect. Thanks again for having me. So for anyone that doesn't know, I'm Hugo. I run Superyacht Sunday School. I'm a career coach and also a former crew and captain on Superyachts. So now I'm helping other people do exactly the same thing as I did for the past 9-10 years. And I'm very interested in mental health because it's something that I think a lot of our families, our friends, when they see us on Instagram, they see all the beautiful places we go to, the luxurious things that we do, and everyone thinks that, life is just dandy and it's great. And it is, right? Or else we wouldn't be there. But on top of that, there are a lot of challenges that come with the loneliness, the long hours, the physicality of the work. And it's good to talk about those things and also raise awareness, because that's how we can, keep changing and improving the industry.
Thank you for leading us into the first section that I think it's what really affects us the most is the impacts of isolation. How does the physical isolation and the distance from your family and friends impact the mental health of yourself and the other crew members on board?
Right. So it's a very tricky thing because, like you said, there is you're tired after all these long hours of working, right? And you're far away from home. You don't get to just go sit on your sofa or go see your loved ones, like on most jobs. Unless they're on board, you're really just confined to yourself and your cabins, maybe with one other person. You don't even have that space to be that, to feel those feelings. But yeah, for a lot of us, it affects us in different ways. But you start seeing things like a change in behaviors, sadness, anxiety, people very easy to irritate, very stressed out overall, feeling of overwhelm, dismay, sadness, and it can lead up to full-blown depression. There's a lot of negative and really dark feelings that can manifest in crew.
Is this something that you have seen personally, or you have seen in other people that you can help us understand what that actually looks like on board a yacht?
Definitely. So I can speak to both, a little bit of first person and also third person as well. But let's say even for me, especially the hardest thing on working on board is whenever you have, let's say, birthdays, Christmas, holidays, times that you're used to or you'd like to go spend it with, loved ones, people that you know. And especially for me, my birthday being in July, one of the biggest things is that every year in the middle of the summer season, I'm here with a bunch of people of varying degrees, how much I know them. Sometimes I'd be just starting out on a boat that season, right? So you have absolutely no rapport and no close relationship, right? Everyone's going to try their best. They'll bring you a cake, we sing, but a lot of times for me, especially, I was on charter. So it'd be really long hours that day on my birthday with people I don't know, away from my friends and family, with probably not enough time to get a really long phone call in or something that I'd like. So for me, those days especially, I'd feel, quite blue. Really, you don't want to do anything. You feel just really isolated, withdrawn. You feel alone, like everyone else is smiling and trying to pep you up, but it's just not where you want to be, right? And it's a very, very difficult time. Same thing with Christmas, right? If you're on charter, again, sometimes you have the luxury that you're busy, so you notice it less. But on other boats you're not working, right? For some reason or another, maybe the boat's in the shipyard. And again, having a slow work day, being around people you don't know, all the traditions and all those warm feelings, those memories of everything you used to do as a kid is completely different to where you are right now. And again, it's really, really easy to feel that alienation, that, oh, I don't feel like I belong. Do I really want to do this? Is it really worth it? Right? Is the money worth it? All those negative thoughts that later in the moment you can kind of piece together and think about. But in the moment, it's really, really hard.
And then if you want to layer on top, maybe you have all your crew and all your friends trying to lift your spirits. But what if that charter season you have very ungrateful clients and you are thinking, I'm away from my family, and on top of everything, this is not the ideal situation that I wanted to replace, because you didn't choose to replace it. It's not like on your birthday you decided, oh, I'm not spending it with family, I'm doing a specific trip for it. This was out of your control. I've heard that a lot from people in the hospitality industry, not only on board crew, but especially chefs, because the busiest times are the holidays for them. So I completely understand that. Also, I am what is it, a Christmas baby? So December 27th, it's always like it's definitely, I do not recommend. So this is really hard. And obviously, especially the holidays, it's not like it happened once time. It's going to happen every year. You're isolated boat. You can't really change your birthday. You can't change the holidays. Obviously, charter season is one of the busiest times when it's Christmas time. But what lessons have you learned from your own experience, or anything that you have seen other people change in their behavior, or that you can recommend for those listening?
Definitely. There's a few different strategies that you can apply to trying to combat this. And for me, one of the best things and one of the simplest things I can say is just moving your body, right? For some people, that's running. For some people, that's yoga, some kind of cardio. Maybe it's just stretching in your cabin, right? Because you're so busy, or you're on charter and you can only do, let's say, some body weight fitness stuff and doing some light stretching. But just moving your body 15, 30 minutes, it completely changes just your brain chemistry and how you're looking at situations, right? In the moment, you're full of dismay, you feel really upset, you start moving, and 30 minutes later, you have, the serotonin's kicking off in your brain, your adrenaline is flowing a little bit, and it's a lot easier to detach and think, okay, yeah, I'm a little bit sad, life's not that bad, X, Y, and Z, I'm going to approach the problem like this. Just having the ability to move your body, for me and all the crew member that I've seen that work really well with being apart from everyone else, they've maintained their hobbies, they've maintained their physical fitness, and those kind of things. It might sound like not a lot, but in an environment where we're working long hours, where we're far away from a lot of the comforts that we're used to, having that kind of routine is really, really helpful for me. Even also just meditation, in the mornings, even if it's just 15 minutes, again, that helps just center me. And then I'm thinking, okay, that problem that felt so big, or that mountain that was here, is actually a problem like this, right? And again, going back to trying to see the positive in your life at that point is a lot easier than when you're just like wallowing in that moment.
I love that you gave these amazing practical tools that we can all replicate. I'm not on board anymore, but I do travel a lot, and Claire Hagen is here, and she's going to jump in 1 second. But before that, when I travel a lot, you do become, especially when different time zones into different countries, as yacht crew do. It's not that they're just moving around close to home. Having a routine is so beneficial because you get to have a control of your day, even if it's like a routine in the morning. So I'm so happy that you brought meditation and exercising, because they are part of the seminar. And today we're going to be doing a meditation session at the end. But let me bring in Claire Hagen because she's now available again. So 1 second.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
Hey, Claire, welcome to my interview.
Thank you so much. Oh yeah, I'm in Monaco, and there was some sort of evacuation. Nothing bad, but it was like a drill. So everyone evacuated the hotel just as this was starting. So thank you to Andrea for covering.
Do you want me to catch you up a little bit? We were talking again a little bit about that alienation, why it happens on board, right? It's the long work hours. It's the physically being removed from our home countries, right? Which isn't typical for your 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And all of that, with all the stress of starting a new job, a new career, and all of that bottles together into people. And, it's very possible to spiral into things like depression, or just feeling really big anxiousness, change in personality shifts with all this sadness and all these other negative emotions that creep in, right? Even though we're in some of the hottest places, the most beautiful ships and all this, it's very possible that, it's the whole sad clown kind of thing, right? Like, make everyone happy on the outside, and on the inside, you're not feeling so great. So I was speaking about how, for me, one of the biggest things, and what I've noticed in other people as well, is trying to keep some kind of routine or normalcy compared to normal life, right? So I'm a big practitioner of, waking up even 15, 30 minutes early, trying to get a stretch in, trying to get some meditation in. I was mentioning how, for me, and studies show, when you get the blood flowing, when, that your brain kicks off that dopamine from starting to move, when the adrenaline's flowing, you tend to not be as susceptible to being sad, right? That's one of the first things they recommend to people that are going through depression, right? Get back into the gym, start moving their body 30 minutes a day, even if it's walking, right? Just anything, because that's going to help a lot. And then I was also mentioning the physicality, the stretching, and that for everyone that looks different, right? So maybe you're on charter, maybe you're underway, or maybe you're at the dock. For someone, it could be running. For someone else, it might be yoga. For someone else, it might be just some light stretching or some cardio, whatever it is. It's different for everyone, but just doing some kind of movement, just also trying to get in some of that like meditation. And if you have certain hobbies, right? I know we're really busy on board, but if you've always loved reading, or you've always loved, sketching, or writing 30 minutes is what you've known that helps you get through life, like not losing that when we get on board. Because on board, it's very easy to fall into the habit that there's so much that's demanding of you that you just kind of go, okay, it's just work and then to bed, right? And then you wake up and it's back to work and then to bed. And you wouldn't recommend that to an accountant. You wouldn't recommend that to a doctor. So same thing. At the end of the day, we're on a luxury toy, right? It's not life or death, even though it can feel that way.
Yeah, and I guess in like such long hours, and you're like also living with your colleagues. So even when you're technically off, you talk about work and like what's next, and it's super tough.
There's always another job on a yacht too. It never stops.
Always something. Yeah, always something to do. And in terms of recognizing it, like, obviously, owning up to part of like, okay, I think I'm getting depressed, like as part of, the solution to start. So what would you recommend? Is it just a bad day, or are you actually falling into something else? What would you recommend?
Right. Would you approach it from the perspective of looking inwards, or like catching it in a colleague?
I think just, looking at like, oh, okay, I'm feeling like this for a while now. Like, what's to change, Like Like how do you think there's triggers, or obviously different people, different things, but on board, is there a certain thing that you would give to tips about, like, are you feeling like this, you know, what would you recommend?
I know one of the things is that it looks quite different for everyone, right? Like even something like depression
Yeah.
is a little bit difficult, but yes, this prolonged feeling of a lot of the traits that we talked about at the beginning, right? That prevailing like dismay, not wanting to get out of bed, feeling a lot of anxiety and stress around just everything in your life. Like you can't overcome it, right? It's starting to feel overwhelming. Again, those feelings of alienation and isolation, them getting deeper, right? I always tell people at the beginning, every boat's a shit boat, right? You get there for a month, you don't know anyone, you feel like, I want to go home, right? 3 months, maybe the same thing. Even 6 months, you're like, am I doing the right thing? But it starts to decrease, right? You start to feel more at home with these people. You start to realize that you have things in common, right? But like these prolonged feelings of separation, like you still don't fit in, and longing for something else back home, whether it's family, loved ones. If that's something that's becomes commonplace and doesn't seem to be getting better, but in fact is getting worse, right? And it's then starting to affect other aspects of your life, I think that's when you have to start realizing, like you said, it's not a bad day. It's not even a bad charter. It's something more, right? And the next step, it's going to start affecting your work, right? It's going to start affecting your relationships with everyone. So I guess the first step, I would say, you feel poor, like try to zoom out and think, is it, like you said, is it a today thing? Is it this charter thing? Or, this season's been really tough? Or is it, oh no, it's just everything, is caving in.
And so in terms of like, obviously captains, a lot of captains watching this, is it like training and resources and ways that, like, obviously there's a lot of managing parts of the boat. So what would you advise them when they're seeing obviously their crew, obviously, feeling depressed? Like how can they help? Like what are the tips and training resources that people can, introduce on board?
Right. So unfortunately, I think right now the industry, well, it's kind of like in a shift. Like there's not that many industry resources that everyone's aware of or even knows of, right? Like in terms of management, it's not like they're saying you have a health policy that includes seeing a therapist for X amount of time, or we have an on-demand psychologist that can talk to crew. So a lot of it is kind of DIY or looking online to learn more about this, which is unfortunate. But I do think, seminars like this and a lot of the movements that are going on are improving that. But as leaders, like you said, as captains, that's one of the main things we need to be able to do, is to lead people and understand. And it's hard because I know there's a lot of other moving parts, moving the boat, the owner's coming, all these things that a lot of times, even for the captain, they lose track of what's going on with the crew, unfortunately, if it gets big enough. So that I think then at that point, the same thing applies, but to HODs. But being able to really have an interest in people, right? The people that we're working with aren't just units that you plug and play into a different cog. They're people, right? They're very unique. We all have stories. We're all from all kinds of crazy different parts of the world. So having interpersonal relationships as a crew, aside from our work, is really important. So then you have a vested interest in going, man, Fred's an awesome deckhand. He's always been great, but this season or this month or even this week, like there's something wrong with how he is. I can see he's not acting the same way. He's not talking in the crew mess now. He's not going to the gym like he used to. And those are all things that you can only notice if you're actually spending time with these people, right? If you don't have time with them, if you don't have any rapport, you're not going to notice their behavior changing. So I think in terms of like recognizing it is one of the hardest struggles that a lot of us are going to face, when applying it to our crew, because of the fact that we haven't had training in this, right? I've done all kinds of officer and captain trainings. We talked a little bit at one point about how the human element can affect our decisions on board, but really I'm not formally trained in any meaningful psychology aside from some general eds that I took in college. So there does need to be more education on this. I think from my perspective, there is a shortage for sure, and it would be a lot of reading up outside of yachting to try to learn more about this and then incorporate that into your leadership style.
Do you think it's a responsibility of like some of the yacht management and the crew agencies, like to offer like additional support for their captains and crew, like whether it's, like you said, like online seminars like this, or, like helpful guides that the crew network and other, crew companies are sending? I mean, what do you think, you know, on that? Would they be responsive, or I don't know? Is that something maybe we could implement?
It's an interesting question for sure to ask, because legally we know they're not looking out for that because they're not required to, right? There's not an IMO legislation that's saying, hey, you need to make sure that the happiness meter is at 70% for your ship. So they're not looking out for it. But ethically, of course, I think I try to imagine it compared back to, let's say, like a Fortune 500 company. If you hired a consulting agency to come in and look at how that business runs, they're not just going to look at the accounting, you know, which is what management companies do, and then look and go, okay, everything seems like it's not on fire, so it's cool. No, they do a deep analysis on who are the people that you're hiring. You know, how are they getting along? They do interviews with people to see, how do you feel at work? Are you valued? Are you able to progress? Like, there'd be a lot going into it. And I'm not saying that we have to go to that extreme already, but even things like implementing for the agencies or for the management companies, sending even a questionnaire to the crew every 6 months. Hey, how are things? How's it been since I last placed you and I made a few $1,000s off you, right?
Yeah.
What's going on there? And maybe people can reply anonymously, right? And again, in a forum where you feel like you're not going to be a whistleblower, if you know, management is now going to process it and go, okay, they're not going to say Claire said this, but they're maybe going to go, okay, over the last 12 months, it looks like in the interior department, there's a lot of feelings of isolation. There's some bullying that's been going on. Someone's feeling like they're not being cherished or made to feel valuable. Okay, like we can see this trend has gone down actually in satisfaction for the past 2 reviews. Let's get the captain involved and tell him, hey, let's have a meeting with the chief stew, but something's going on there. I don't know who, and it's not about who, but there's a problem and there's a sentiment that's getting worse. And that's just a small example, but you would do it in a company. Why wouldn't you do it with a $150 million asset that maybe has 20, 30 crew? And I think that's the nature of this. The industry is getting so big with these big yachts that we kind of have to think how to relate them back to things on land, right? When you have 30 people on board, there's a lot that goes into HR at that point. It's not just a startup anymore, right? It's a full-blown business.
Yeah. And like you said, you know, these larger yachts is 40, 50, 70 crew. And we've got a question from the Clever Traveler. How have you managed staying connected from afar? It's a good question, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely a good question. One of the main things for me, and I know it sounds quite obvious, but just keeping regular contact with the people that you're trying to stay in contact with. With family, maybe like you've set a routine, like, oh, call mom, you know, once a week, and that's a go-to. I work with crew members that actually do it every day. But again, sometimes you're so busy, for me especially, but at the end of the day, making sure I take like those last 15, 20 minutes, maybe that's when I call my partner, or we have a little bit of texting back and forth. Of course, it's not the same as in normal life, but just setting that routine and going, oh yeah, I can't wait, I'm gonna have that call later tonight. Or again, maybe in the reverse, you know, waking up early and calling my mom, just, oh, this is what's going on. But setting that routine, because if you keep saying, oh, I'll do it on my next break, I'll do it on my next shift, like it just spirals out and you're like, holy shit, it's been a month. And I've fallen victim to that too.
Yeah.
But trying to keep a routine for me is a lot easier than just sending it whenever you're free. Because then when you're never really free, and then you feel guilty, and yeah, that's how that goes.
Yeah, no, especially also with the new generation, like obviously communication's different as well. A lot of people don't like to talk on the phone, so like keeping that WhatsApp or at least some connection is, you know, really important, and setting a routine.
And for me, I was just going to say too, for me, I'm really big on like voice notes, or what we call like asynchronous conversation. Sometimes you can't have a conversation for 15 minutes straight, but I've got 3 minutes. I'm going to send a voice note. Maybe my girlfriend will hear it later, and then she'll send me something 7 minutes later, whatever. And even if it's long, then after the ship, I can look forward to hearing like a quick 5-minute message. And especially with the voice built in, to me, that's really, really critical. And that's how I keep in contact with most people. It's mostly WhatsApp voice notes. On occasion, you know, I'll use text, but I think that's really, really big. It gives you almost the same warmth as having a FaceTime, right? Like seeing their face, but it's a lot more practical because you can do it while you're moving the tender or doing something else.
No, especially with the time zones as well. Like obviously, you know, that's a really good tip. Okay. And then in terms of just obviously in general, if someone can implement something like right now, in terms of like just like quick thing. Like I know you've gone over a lot of tips, but just like, okay, 10 minutes, this is what you prioritize. What would you say?
If it was just 10 minutes,
10 minutes,
I think I think if what studies will show, probably, let's say it's 15 minutes. And then I say like stretch and do yoga for like 10 minutes and then meditate for 5 at the end, for sure. Doing a combination of those two alone. I think they say the first 15 minutes you invest into that kind of mindfulness, you immediately get back that night at sleep, right? They say you fall on average 15 minutes faster to fall asleep. So you're kind of not even net losing anything. But I think if I was to start there, starting with that and then analyzing, okay, is there other physical activity that does excite me? What can I do to get the blood flowing and start sweating?
Yeah. And if there's any, closing statement, big wise words that you could give, what would it be?
I would say, look, at the end of the day, this job, it's super, super taxing at times. It can be super stressful. There's so much going on. There's different people telling you to do different things. The hierarchy sometimes feels like it goes up and you can't see over it. But at the end of the day, we're yachting. We're taking care of someone's toy, right? Something that they probably don't even think of 50% of their life. It might be 100%. You might be so tunnel vision that that's all you can see. But that owner probably doesn't even think about this thing even a quarter of the time. So if even the person that owns it isn't thinking about it that much, like really try to step back and I'm not saying the job isn't important. I'm not saying that what you're doing isn't important, but just zoom out and try to have that second perspective and go, okay, yeah, there is more to this. Even for my life, there's more to this. I have a family. I've got maybe a home. I've got other projects. This isn't it. This isn't the all end all be all. So just really try to keep perspective. And I think that'll help a lot.
And we've got another question. Can you share your routine? I'm guessing you're saying the 15-minute routine or more tips later on. How can we follow you? And I probably missed it. How can we engage with you and keep?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'll answer Beat Library's question quick. So again, like I said, wake up. I like to do maybe 10 minutes. Okay, there's 2 questions. So how do you quickly back into your routine when work disrupts it? Easy to fall off the wagon. Yeah. So for me, I'm taking this from the perspective of, let's say I'm almost on like a live aboard type situation where I've got a really long charter season, right? Usually I have a set schedule. Let's say I'm lead hand or something. I'm working the 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. or something with some breaks and lunches thrown in there, right? But I know, okay, I'm starting at 5. So that means I'll probably wake up maybe 4:15 or a little bit before 4:30, try to do 5 to 10 minutes of meditation, try to do at least 10 to 15 minutes of yoga. So I probably underestimated on time. Let's say 4:15. Do that. Then change, start the shift, go through the shift, right? During the day, I'm firing on all cylinders. I'm working, right? Besides throwing some food in my stomach, there's probably not a lot of dead time, or at least dead time to do practices like this. I would probably then at night, again, let's say I clock off at 8, maybe, talk a little bit, 15 minutes with my girlfriend. I like to put my feet up on the wall because you're standing so much. It kind of brings the blood flow back down and it helps. I found it just helps them not feel as sore. I can't remember exactly the science behind it, but I know like kind of to put perspective, like your feet straight against the wall and then you're just sitting, laying back. I find that's really good, again, to just kind of center and also just the physicality of resting my legs. And then sometimes you can even do a little bit of like night yoga, right? I even go on YouTube sometimes and find a little flow that'll help you then go to sleep. And if you're taking it out of the perspective of yachting, probably including an hour or half an hour of some kind of physical activity in there. But like you said, it's easy to fall off the wagon. And I remember there's a really good, quote from Jerry Seinfeld. They say, how do you write so many jokes? Right? You have this insane university catalog of jokes. Like, how did you get to that point? And he said he literally just writes one joke a day. He says he goes to the calendar and he just marks with a big red X when he says one. When he writes one. And pretty soon he says, you don't want to break the chain because you're seeing it. You're saying, okay, I've done this that many times. And we've probably all heard this. Yeah, if you see it on your calendar, if you see something, but really, if you see something, and especially if you can see that you haven't broken a cycle, you're that much more in tune with doing it. It's a lot. Yeah, it's in your head. Oh, okay, I went to the gym 2 times this week. But start putting X's next to each other or start having some kind of physical cue. And again, you won't want to break it again. And if you do, start from scratch and go again. And then you asked me where you can find me. So Superyacht Sunday School, we're on Instagram. We're also on Facebook. You can find me there. You can find me Hugo.Ortega at superyachtsundayschool.com if you want to shoot an email, or freesuperyachttraining.com if you want to see our free training. And well, probably everyone already here is a super yachty, so it doesn't matter. But that's where you can find me.
Amazing. We've actually got more time, which is great.
Okay,
I
perfect.
didn't realize how much time had already passed while I was getting evacuated from Monaco. So that's amazing. So, we've got more questions. So do you think oh yeah, go on.
No, you go on. You're project.
Do you think there's a major difference in mental health issues depending on the age in the industry, from kids that first left home and their first job to be a seasoned captain?
I think so. I think there is a difference, and it's always, I wouldn't say some is more intense or less intense. It just changes with life, right? When I remember, for me, it wasn't when I first left home, because I had already, it's not when I first entered yachting, but it was when I first left home, right? My first Christmas away while I was traveling. That's when I was like, oh, wow, like this is how it feels when you're so far from home. You feel like an alien or a stranger in a strange land, that kind of feeling. But let's say, fast forwarding to then I'm dating someone, right? Me and my girlfriend, we've been together almost 5 years now, but we started dating at the beginning of COVID. We were both on different yachts, right? So that was extremely lonely in terms of just you with society, but then in terms of your partner is also in a completely different area. So I wouldn't say that was more or less intense, but again, it was a very different feeling now. Now I was feeling it from the romantic interest as well, not so much just family. And then, if you keep zooming forward, then you'd have a captain. Maybe they have a wife and kids, which arguably at this point, a partner and kids, because it can be man or woman, right? Yeah. But I guess I'm going from the perspective, I've met so many men that fit into this stereotype, but they've got a family back home, right? And then now they're battling with the feeling that their kids are growing up without them, or that their partner is raising them alone. And there's a lot of guilt. I think this one's probably, now that I think about it, is going to be the most intense. But again, it's just different. At each point, you're susceptible to being depressed. At each point, it feels like the worst thing. So yeah, unfortunately, I guess it might get easier with time to cope with loneliness, but then you have your own struggles that come across all these peaks in our life, like you're saying, that even a seasoned captain at that point, they might struggle with this too. Yeah,
and going back to your other point that I really loved about, the accountability, sort of like this crossing off on the calendar, these things. And I guess, maybe in terms of, the crew mess or something, maybe there's a joint calendar and everyone's a bit accountable, like everyone's done their X on the calendar, or like everyone's got a different color pen or something. I mean, I just think also, like, as you said, like, for me, it's, the kids left home to first job, everyone's different points, but everyone can do that 10, 15 minutes as well, at any age. So maybe like if oh, hang on, Trevor hasn't done his. I saw his cross isn't there on the calendar. That could be quite a cool, because I think obviously being crew on board, you're all in it together, literally.
Yeah. No, for sure. So. And I think that would work really well, because it reminds me, I was working on a 90 meter back at the beginning of my career, and we would set like our records in, using the rowing machine or the cycling machine or whatever weight you did. We had a little list, and you'd put down your record, and then everyone's trying to beat it, right? So everyone's working out again more on top of that. And then, everyone's asking, oh, did you go to the gym today? Oh, did you do that today? So I can see it working very similar like that. Especially deck crew tend to be very competitive as well. So you'll have someone going, oh, I did mine 3 times today, just because.
Yeah. I think that's really good advice. And in general, like, so like we're talking about, obviously, the whole kids and managing connectivity and stuff. Is there any other advice for someone like a captain who's got obviously that pressure, how they kind of communicate more, or how they can check in better?
So you're saying how they can better check in with their crew?
Yeah, because obviously from the crew side and from his kids, his family, like, is there any key advice you could give?
I would say on the crew point, definitely just, like you said, checking in. One of the things that's so hard in yachting is that, we talk about all these things, a 3-month review, 6-month review, 1-year review. If I could tell you how many reviews I had, I'd probably struggle to fill one hand, right? So maybe we start there, like actually having a regular review, and maybe it's not even a formal one. Maybe you have a formal one once a year, but having like that 6-month checkup, like, how has it been being on my ship? Like tell me from your perspective, what do you see that's going well? What do you see that's going poor? Like maybe we could have roundtable discussions like that, where you don't feel the pressure that like it's, oh, I'm bad mouthing you. No, I'm just saying this is where I'm seeing it's not doing so hot. Maybe even having, an anonymous box where you can actually put suggestions, right? Like, again, there's all these things that work in regular life. I think you could probably adapt some kind of, maybe one thing at a time, right? You don't want to be too kitschy, but you can apply to yachting as well. And in terms of the family side, like you were saying, just, again, scheduling. I know it sounds silly, but even when you mark on your own calendar, if you put something in Google Calendar, it's going to ping your phone. You're going to pick it up and see, even if it doesn't have a meeting or anything, and it just says call mom or text wife or whatever it is, you see that, you're going to stop, and you can choose not to do it, but you're going to be that much more likely to do it because it's kind of encroached into your life. So I think setting up things like that will set us up for success. Yeah,
for sure. I think everyone should do something like that now. Everyone who's listening can put some sort of notifications, check in with, where's that crew? Oh, this table is wobbly. I think setting that notification and doing it now, like if everyone takes the time and just goes like, who can I check in right now? Set a notification next week. It takes 2 weeks. I think it's a good habit to have. Okay, we have another question. Happy early birthday. Is it your birthday? I missed that.
Oh, it is. Well done. Yeah, my birthday's in 3 days. That's awesome that someone knew. Thanks, Facebook.
And then how are you dealing with special holidays on board? I mean, considering the industry, that's a good point. New Year's Eve and all these special holidays, that's great celebration for everyone else. So you want to be on your yacht is obviously, the crew. What can you, recommend?
Right. So for starters, right now I'm not on board. So I work full time on land doing, this company and helping people. But I'll take it back to the perspective of when I was full time as crew. Right. Again, Christmas is always a really difficult one. I guess it depends. For one, you have to look at, are you on charter or are you not? Because sometimes when you're on charter, it's a blessing because you're so busy that you don't have time to think about it except the morning of the night. And again, that's when I would say, for me, it was about calling home or calling those loved ones. So I'd do it at both ends, like the bookend of my day. Start off on a high, on a positive, and then end also on one. And just during the day, try not to think about it too much. But the problem more so is when you're slow. Right? When it is your birthday and you don't have a charter, or when it is Christmas and for some reason the boat's on the hard and you couldn't go back because they could only send so many crew back, insert whatever scenario. Yeah. And I've found that in those times, almost trying to bring some kind of tradition back. Like I'm really big on making eggnog. I like doing that. So maybe at some point in that season, making an effort to do that, right? Like making a little special tradition. We've done photo shoots where like we all have Santa hats and we're on the bow and things like that. Like trying to bring some kind of celebration or make some kind of crew tradition is really, really big. Even the stews, just changing the placemats and the napkins to being like festive, and the chef puts in some kind of effort on actually making a nice spread. And again, the crew trying to fill in. I've done Secret Santas while we're underway, right? I've done a lot of different activities like that. Maybe what's the one where you steal the gifts from each other? Is that Dirty Christmas?
Oh God, I think that might be an American thing.
Yeah, that might be an American one. But I've also done that on charter, right? Even though it only maybe took 20, 25 minutes, making sure we had coverage in some way while the rest of the crew got to do something like that. Creating those little micro moments, at least then you can look back and go, okay, it was hard. It's not like being at home, but I made a cool memory. I got closer to everyone I work with. All that's really, really positive.
Yeah. And talking also like, with the special occasions, I guess like, actually moving Christmas Day, like, and creating your own Christmas Day is what you're saying, really. Like, it could be, having your own crew Christmas Day when you are off.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't have to be on the physical day. I've had where the owner's coming on Christmas, so we did it on Eve, which in other cultures still is fine anyway. But it could be on Boxing Day. It could be a week later. Who cares?
Do you think there should be like a nominated person that's kind of, I mean, I guess some people would probably like nominate themselves. Like you have committees in companies where it's a social committee in previous companies. I mean, maybe as a crew, having someone like say, look, you're our seasonal girl or guy, you organize this, and that's part of, or the captain, says there's a social committee. I don't know. Like, because that happens in corporate world. So maybe having someone to make sure someone's responsible of making sure these things happen.
I like that idea. It kind of reminds me, I don't know if you're familiar with The Office, how they had the party planning committee.
Yeah.
I could see something like that working. Yeah, and the captain can give a budget for like whatever it is. Well, I think that's already usually happens in terms of crew deco or crew alcohol or whatever. But I think that could work. I've worked with several self-proclaimed crew morale officers, so I guess those would be the personalities and the people that you would be looking towards. Yeah, I've been lucky enough to have a few of those on crew, and that's always really nice because then they're always willing to, they're always trying to be the center of the party or create some kind of event. So that might also go back into the hiring process, right? Maybe in terms of the interviewing or something, that's something that we're looking for, right? I remember on my second yacht, the captain told me he hired me as the personality hire, right? So that could be, again, similar thing. You're looking for that one person who can kind of be an X factor for certain things.
Yeah. And we have another question. Do you have any tips on dealing with feelings of grief when being on board with no physical connection to your loved ones? Grieving for a loss can feel overwhelming. The loss can be from a present experience or former experience is triggered somehow.
Yeah, that one's especially difficult. I haven't gone through, knock on something like intense grief or anything like that yet. I haven't had a loved one that was lost. But from what I've seen, I had a chief stew on one of my yachts that lost her father at the beginning of a charter. And from what I saw, one of the biggest things and best things you can probably do is to leave if that's physically possible, right? Yeah. Sometimes they can't get someone in or you don't want to, or you don't have a place to go back to now. Like I know there's a lot of different scenarios, but that would be my first thing, right? She couldn't cope with it. And I saw that it was really, really negative affecting her. And I spoke with her and I said, look, we can get you home. Like, let's just do that. And that was what she ended up doing. But for some people, if you can't do that, it's hard because I feel like you need time to go through all of those different emotions. A lot of those, for some people, it's really ugly, right? And you don't want to be around other people. And for other people, they just keep it inside. And then I feel like they can't properly move on. But I know everyone can't just extricate themselves from the situation. So if so, maybe it would be having a really honest conversation with the captain, maybe just trying to get some time back, even if it's like half a day, or is there like a way that you can call, okay, I'm at this point, I can't. Can we make amends for the rest of this shift or something, and trying to get some alone time and some space to deal with what you're going through, because it's really serious. And I think yachting isn't always the most friendliest place to be going through intense emotional problems, because it's just so minimal in the amount of resources we have, like the amount of extra time, the amount of extra space, that I think that would be my strongest suggestion. If you could, to extricate or just be honest and upfront with your HOD or the captain, be like, look, this is what I'm going through. This is what's happening. Or maybe I'm not going to go into that much detail, but I might need time or might need something at some point, and seeing if they're willing to work with you. Okay, we'll go a man down for the next day or whatever.
And, in like you were bringing it back to like the corporate world, you would have a day where you get it off for grief. And so, I mean, maybe there's something within that at least, this becomes normal, like, having, personal day and introduced into yachting. And I think, do you think that it brings it back to like the yacht management and the crew agencies and the other external things that are obviously dictate what the crew do, and from a charter perspective, or, scheduling really, and like having that time?
Yeah, I agree 100% with what you're saying. I think that would be an excellent thing to put into practice, and I think we're moving in that direction, right? It's hard because yachting is one thing that yachting is. It's far from being standard, right? You can be on one yacht where if you say, I think I'm sick, and you have to work anyway, and why are you trying to get off, right? And you can have on a boat that you go, hey, I'm feeling ill, and they go, hey, we got a car, we'll send you to the doctor right away, we'll take care of that, right? It's like such a vast difference. So I can say, kind of like on the moral high ground, we need to get to here, and this is what we need to do. But there's a lot of training that just needs to go on psychologically, because sometimes people say, the owner doesn't want to pay for this, or the management doesn't want this, but who really doesn't want it is the captain, or who really doesn't want it is the old boys and girls that don't want to change. Are they going, why do people need mental health now anyway, right? There's still so much of that mentality that people just need to grow out of. So I hope everyone can kind of keep moving forward with that, so we can kind of phase those people out, and then we do have a more enlightened crowd that's like, yeah, if my corporate job at the bank is willing to give me a day for grief, then surely someone who owns that bank should also give me a day for grief.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also it comes back to, age as well. Like, so I know that a lot of the older generation had the very British thing to say, the stiffer upper lip is like, you've got to just carry on mentality. I'm not saying it comes from the war. Well, it kind of does, but but I think it's also that. And like, I think this generation and even mine as a millennial, we've become a bit more open with being like, it's okay not to be okay. You just have to talk about it. Don't just bottle it up. So I think, that like opening up as well, that generationally, like some people do bottle it in and because they've been taught from back then, like this stiff upper lip sort of mentality. So I think also from the personal day thing, bringing it back to corporate, I really like the idea of having a personal day. I think that should be maybe something we all lobby, because if as you say with crew, maybe you don't want to talk to your colleagues about grief or the breakup because it's too personal and you don't want everyone to know your business because you've got to work with them the next day. So saying like, I just have to have a personal day is why corporate companies now say you don't have to give us a reason. You can keep that to yourself. You just say, look, I can't tell you what's going on, but I want a personal day. So I think, that could be a great thing in yachting, because you're closer than ever to these people, because you stay in the same quarters as them. You're like
live,
really,
eat, sleep, work, everything.
So I think having like a note with the grief thing, having some sort of day introduced to the yachting calendar, that you have a certain amount of days a year that you can just say, you know what, I just don't feel like it today, and I need that personal day and that guarantee.
Yeah, 100%. I see there's a question below saying about crew training. Is it giving the real picture? No. In regards to how prepared new crew are, or do they make it seem like a below a deck episode in order to churn and burn?
Oh God, it's below deck.
It's a difficult question, because in terms of mental health, I'm going to take it just wide, right?
Yeah.
I think, no, a lot of people don't have the full picture. And unfortunately, a lot of people are just judging it off a TV show. And I'm not going to say names, but there's a ton of schools, especially a lot in South Africa, that are just telling everyone, hey, come do it. It's the best thing in the world. And just come give me, like $5,000 a head and hang out with me for a month. And I'm going to take you 0 to hero and you're going to be completely ready. And it's a lie. It's an open-faced lie. And a lot of people don't know what they're getting into, right? Like, look, I've been in the industry for almost 10 years. And look, it's hard. It's physical work. I enjoyed it. I love it. It's not for everyone, 100%. There's a lot of people that don't want to work long hours. There's a lot of people that never been away from home. There's a lot of people that have never cleaned, that have never done anything, have never humbled themselves in certain ways. There's a lot to it. Is it worth it? Yeah, of course, or I wouldn't have done it. But we need to be more realistic with telling people for sure what they can expect, and just getting people to be more aware of even topics like this, right? I think the hardest parts about yachting, and I once had a chief officer tell me this. He said, the reason we get paid all the money that we get paid isn't because the charters are long. It's not even because the charters are hard. He said, we get paid the money we do because we're away from family, friends, and we have to deal all year round when the owner's gone, when the kids are gone, when everyone's back at home. You're still there working hours on that boat with people that aren't your best friend. Maybe they're not even great friends. They're from different places. Maybe they even speak a different language than you. And that's the part that most people can't handle. They can't, it's too much. And having some kind of training, maybe to bring people aware to that cultural difference, to the loneliness, to the negative feelings. I think that's something that's a far cry from any of the training or even any of the briefings or interactions that we're doing with people at this moment.
Yeah. And touching on actually nationality, I didn't even think about that. Like, because obviously you have so many nationalities on board and different ways they've been brought up. And I know I'm typically British. I don't speak any other language. Like, what advice would you give, like kind of trying to communicate with your colleagues better? And like, because if they're struggling, it's maybe harder to communicate as well on board. Like, is there any advice you can give? Like, very multinational crew,
I would say for what works for me is I mean, it's also a bias, but it's also sometimes easier to speak about emotions or things that are really, really intense with someone that speaks the same language as you, just because a lot of that was formed when you were a kid, right? The sadness, the joy, all those things are sometimes associated with your parents or with your upbringing or something like that. So I find that I usually try to find a confidant. For me, that would be in Spanish, right? So I usually have some kind of Spanish crew member nearby that I can share that extra bit really to kind of get through things or get past things, but not everyone has that, right? Maybe if you're from South Africa, yeah, you've got all the people in the world that can listen. You've got a whole choir, but for some of us, maybe we're from a really particular part of the world and we can't express ourselves. And I think at that point, trying to still have a best friend or someone that's really close to you on the crew, maybe they're not your best friend in normal life, but someone that you trust more than the rest, just that you can kind of not vent, but just unload to, be a little bit more vulnerable to. That's going to be really, really big. And if you can't have that, then again, just phoning home, I think, or phoning a friend or whoever's in that language or culture that's going to understand your problem.
Yeah. And we have another, it says, by the way, I was just onward without having negative consequences. I think that was back to the grief question.
Yes. Yeah. So you probably, unfortunately, with some boats, you're right. You would just lose your job, right? If you told them, hey, I can't handle this right now. I can't cope. Best case, I'd be hoping for a boat that would give you some kind of time.
Yeah.
But if they're super busy, they might just say, hey, you didn't lose your job, but here's a plane ticket. We'll see you later. And like you said, in other ones, it is going to be a plane ticket home. And that's the unfortunate stance of where the industry is at the moment. And I think the best thing to just think about it is, hey, if they couldn't do that for you, then they're probably not a boat you wanted to work for.
Yeah.
And, you know, if there's more boats for sure. And there's like 20,000 yachts out there. So you can find another one. I know it's easy to say. And again, there's so much complexity in this question, but if we boil it down, if they can't meet the needs that you have, and it's for your mental health to go somewhere else, and your job's at risk, I would say follow your health and then go back for another job.
Yeah. And in terms of if you are feeling that isolated and, you know, you can't, obviously you're scared about losing your job. Obviously that means, you know, no money, you don't know where you're going, you don't know where your next job is. You know, I guess, do you think the industry in general, obviously we're talking about this and this is great set up and this is what this is for, but, you know, back to owner, captain, you know, the stakeholders education about giving that leeway, you know, everything doesn't need to be so tight. And like, if that guy goes down, like we're screwed, you know, does there need to be some sort of, I don't know, some sort of company that steps in that is, I don't know, and if that's, you know, like the emergency crew, like come in, temps, I don't know. Do you think there's a solution, or is there a company out there, you know, right now, apart from the crew agencies that gives temp crew?
Apart from the agencies, no, that is a hole in the industry. I like what you said about having a specific kind of niche where you're trying to fill in for people that have these problems, right? That emotional distress or whatever. Like if you could partner a company with all the recruitment agencies, hey, if you hear that this happens, like use us, that could be really, really interesting. But like you said, yes, it requires educating the stakeholders, right? Because even, let's say, to take it to a concept, it's similar to rotation, right? Where you give people more time off, and in turn, you have to pay more money to have the same amount of crew, technically, right? In a way, because the owner doesn't feel that there's more crew, but there are, and that he or she is losing more money. So I think you have to educate the owners, because from their perspective, you're kind of trying to tell someone to stop loving money, right? Or start hating it, because you're going to basically say, hey, we're going to lose this much in man hours, and you're going to also have to pay this much more money in psychological welfare or whatever. Are you ready to sign up? And they're going to say, hell no. But like what we do in corporate is you start showing studies or doing studies that show, hey, we're losing so much money in efficiency and in how people are performing. And it's costing the boat this because we're having so much churn because people are in distress and they're leaving. And you start breaking it down, and it's a little bit of extrapolation, but if you can turn it into dollars and cents and tell someone, not having these policies costs you this, having these policies will break even or maybe cost a little more, but you'll keep more retention, your kids will be happier, or the golden crown would be, oh, you're also going to save money if you do this. But I think we need to start doing some research into things like that, because that's, once we convince them, everything else will follow. But right now it's me from the crew perspective shouting upwards saying, hey, we need this. And the next level is like, yeah, we don't care. We don't have the money for that. And the conversation stops there. So it requires a governmental boards and a lot of awareness with, again, like events like these to try to change the tides and start having a better industry.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also I really like, the idea that there's some sort of, I don't know, because I always think of the school system where you get, like, in England, it's Ofcom. So they say, like, that school rating's this. And I think the moment someone comes in with a Glassdoor review of certain yachts, I know that, like, there's that yacht shaming group, which I can't follow, and I'm not in yachting. And then the crew side. But I know from a marketing perspective, obviously, we always talk at the brokerage house about great crew. There's always great crew. It's a fantastic crew. And we're always talking about the reviews from previous charter guests. So if there was something that was like, oh, it's a verified, like, independent source for a rating, and then you want to chase that rating because then you can charge more for the charter side, maybe. And that means looking after the crew because then they'll do a better job. So maybe that's
a really good point. Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, we just got to get the third person on this call is going to be a really good lawyer, and we'll start breaking down with an NDA what we can and can't say, because I know this is what scares most people, right? Most people don't want to say anything because they've signed away, or they think they've signed away the rights to say. But we do need some kind of information can be brought out for sure and say, this yacht has a 1 out of 5 in safety. This yacht's a 1 out of 5 in drills. This yacht doesn't do this. There's so much that needs to be under scrutiny, because the problem is we have too many cowboys, too many small boats that are doing all kinds of shit, taking in people that are completely green, almost predatory like, almost what is it when you almost gaslighting them into thinking they're crazy. You're so lucky to be on this boat. You can just go to that Facebook group, Yachtie's Name and Shame, and you can see like a lot of the just preposterous, toxic stuff that comes out.
Crazy.
Like if you want to feel depressed on board, go into your cabin and read Yachtie's Name and Shame, and then you're really gonna have a good time.
Yeah, I joined it actually because it was an awareness for some of the clients I have of the roster of yachts that we're marketing. Because I also have a responsibility not to say in an Instagram post or a thing, oh, this yacht is amazing, in a way. And it's also to tell the client, like, look, there's clearly a couple of issues, and we can't keep claiming this has a great crew experience when there's clearly a couple of issues, And I'm glad that there's an anonymous thing around that group because, like pointed out, NDAs and things, and the more, voices we give to crew, the more obviously the industry has to move in a better direction as well.
Right. The knowledge is power in that instance.
Yeah. So now knowing the mental health tolls working on yachts can have, would you have done something to be better prepared before taking a job? That's a question.
That's a great question. So for me, one of the biggest things after my first few knockabouts and seeing how different yachts run and how it was being on board is asking as much questions as I can at the beginning to try to get a more fuller picture. And that sounds kind of obvious, but really asking questions. Like for me, it's important to try to figure out how much is this boat used, right? If they're saying they charter, okay, last year, what were the numbers? If the owner's on there a lot, what are we talking? Live aboard? We talking 3 months in the summer? We talking 2 weeks in the summer? What, how long was my last predecessor on board for? Trying to figure out, okay, they left in 3 months. How long was the predecessor before that? Oh, okay. What are your expectations then for the bosun, right? Let me listen to see if something's weird, because people keep leaving and it sounds like the boss is there a shit ton. So like trying to get more and more of an idea. What do the crew like to do? Well, everyone goes home or this and this and this. Okay. So it's a boat based in Florida now that everyone has their own house. I'm not going to be hanging out with people. It sounds like, like really just trying to ask enough questions to get an idea. Like how many crew do we have? What are the nationalities on board? How much is the usage? Again, a little bit of interpersonal stuff mixed with a lot of just figuring out the situation is, because sometimes I know for crew and myself in particular, even you feel like when you ask too many questions, I'm going to turn them off. They're not going to want to hire me, or I'm going to look like I'm too difficult. But hey, you're going to hang up that phone and have to go to the airport, fly to a different country, get onto that boat and hope to God that it's a good one. Because if not, now you got to get on a plane and go somewhere else. It's a really, really involved, almost you're marrying yourself to this job way more than anyone else would. And I know for a fact that if it was a corporate job, I'd be asking a good amount of questions too. So I have to naturally be asking more, or I'm being silly.
Yeah. And do you think from a job advertising perspective, it's a really good point you made that there should be more detail in them? Like, I think obviously they're not going to tell you if the last guy lasted 3 months, but like, you know, in terms of communication, like, is this yacht, you know, mostly Italian and I'm going to be the only one that's like, you know, doesn't speak Italian? Or am I, you know, is there a more of an awareness on, you know, what, you know, who's on the boat? What am I going to be part-time stew as well as a deckhand? I'm going to this, you know, so maybe it's a detail that should be added to job description. Do you think, like, adding more? Do you think there's enough description added to the current job descriptions?
For one, job descriptions in this industry are far again from standard, right?
Yeah.
I've seen 2 lines that say need deckhand, $200 ASAP, and they don't even remember to put where the boat is, or even the contact info. And I've seen other ones that, you know, is a good lengthy few paragraphs. So I think overall we have a huge way to go in the amount of information that we're giving, because again, like I was saying, it's such an involved thing to say, yes, I will be crew, because then when that person hears yes, they're also now their expectation is, well, Hugo's going to be here for at least 12 months. And how can you expect me to do that if you also didn't even give me anything? Like, you know, people complain about crew longevity. People complain about what young people in the industry are saying now, but they're not also looking back and going, who the hell would make that informed decision? Like I've gotten on interviews with people who don't even remember who I am or what we've talked about. And I'm like, if you can't even run this interview, how can you run a boat? So it's difficult. We really do need to educate. And again, I keep saying educate, and it's hard who's doing the educating, but we need to educate people at the top on how to communicate things like this outside of the boat, because we do need more information. And I think it would be beneficial to everyone, to green crew, experienced crew. Like, there's nothing worse than hopping on a boat that you thought you were going to be there for 2 years. And then you get there and you look at the logbook. I've had this, and I see predecessor left in 6 months, before him 3 months, 3 months, 3 months. And then I get there, and then I'm spending time with the captain, and then I'm like, oh, right, it's that. It's the micromanaging and the not trust and the spazziness and all this stuff. And I guess that wouldn't be easy to capture in a job listing. That probably falls back more to me, to being a better interviewee. But again, there's so many things where this happens, where we don't have enough information at the beginning and we can't make the most informed decision, and then throw in the loneliness and all the other stuff. And suddenly it's a recipe for disaster.
And also from that point, do you think there should be a template that people can follow? Because obviously if you're down on crew, you're probably, this isn't your, like, obviously it's a priority to get new crew, but you're writing this job ad, probably, maybe it's not even through an agency. You know, you're a captain under stress because you're a lack of crew, and that's why you're hiring. So you're kind of rushed to create these job posts. So maybe there's maybe a template that's for the industry to download or something hosted somewhere, because I think maybe they can't, you know, if you're under pressure, like, I can't even think that I don't even need to put the location, because I've been on that, and I'm like, oh God, I didn't even put the salary, because I'm like, so, you know, under pressure, it's like a part of a job. So maybe there's some sort of industry standard template, be like, look, this would be ideal, like, because this is what people need to know.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. I hadn't even thought about that till you said that, but you're right. That's a huge opportunity. Yeah. And then you can plug and play with whatever information you want, but just even like a quick checklist for you to remember the essentials. Yeah, because that's a huge thing. And I think it's funny because we put so much emphasis on how good is your CV for a crew coming in, right? And we think, oh, well, if your CV is not that great, then surely you didn't put in enough effort and you don't really want this job. Meanwhile, I need crew and I'm not putting in any effort into the listing that I'm putting out. So it's like, you have to do, what is it? Do not as you see, but not as I do, but as I say. Yeah. So it's kind of a bit of a catch-22 at that point.
Absolutely. It's like, do I put a photo on? Do I put my socials on? I've seen these articles or recommending what crew do to their CVs, and there's nothing about job posting and, like, you know, what is the ideal job ad? Okay, maybe we can get someone to write that who's listening. Next question. Just recently, we see the companies that are offering criminal record checks. That's a good point. But is it still far from the norm? How does that affect your confidence on board when you're not even sure that the people you're working with out at sea with no escape, are you safe? That is a good point.
Yeah, that is a really great point. Seeing as how I've worked with, well, I've worked on boats that I couldn't confirm or not, but that, it was known that certain crew members had maybe some really negative history with the law. Like I've worked with, again, I didn't know, but people that have come out of like dealing drugs or like murders. I've heard of crazy stuff on board.
Wow.
But one of the most important factors is just safety for the rest of the crew, right? There was a few years ago, there was incident of a stewardess that was, she would assault, and I think there was a rape charge as well, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I think the most important thing is to make crew feel safe, and you want to be able to know that when the lights go down and that boat's floating, who knows where, that everyone does have their wits about them. And I do think that would be something that should fall under the management company, whether it's they also do psychological tests. We can rope that into being able to check on people's mental health once a year, or who knows, or when they're hired, and then a year later, right, to be able to tell what's changed. And then maybe it is, doing also as well some kind of background check or history. Again, that's the problem, right? We're kind of starting at zero, and we're looking at so many things. We do need to start having the impetus and the onus on these companies to at least be checking who they're sticking onto the yachts. So I think the concept is great. I know there's a little bit of trick in the execution since it's worldwide and since there's different flagged yachts and so many things, but I think it is good.
Yeah, and I also think, for what I've seen from my experience, there's a lot of companies that say they're going to check this and they're creating all of these incentives, but then it's just a money thing, and it's not like it's just to charge yacht companies money, so everyone's skeptical. I used to work for Fraser Yachts. We'd get a lot of people pitching to us, and we'd be like, okay, and then we'd be like, actually, this is just a money scheme to get to do, like, install something or put something to our crew. But I think maybe it's an industry-wide thing that all the the builders to the designers to the brokerage houses have to give to something independent. So it's more about the quality of, like you said, like having these surveys done, and it's so independent because actually they as being a yacht company in the industry, it may be something MEBA can do, because they have a responsibility, their charter and the crew is obviously like what 80% of the experience on a charter. Maybe it's something they can be like, look, we need these things, and like someone needs to do it, because obviously every brokerage house is under pressure at the moment, time poor inside. So giving them an extra job, I can assume that's what's stopping the evolution of adding some of these great incentives. And the crew and the captain are under pressure. So maybe it needs to come from an independent thing, that is not doing it for commercial reasons, but doing it for like actually making the industry generally better.
Right. And thanks, Johnny, for that comment. It's been really good chat so far, really good conversations on the topic. And I know I don't want to take the floor from you, but they said last call for questions. So if anyone wants to ask one more question, go ahead, throw it up there. We'll try to tackle it.
Yeah, definitely. Last call. Yeah, I just think, I think I'm definitely going to start lobbying people now that I know my clients. I'm going to be like, oh, God, Claire attended some crew conference, and now I've got to put all these things in place.
Right. It's like they were saying before, the risk of losing your job for speaking out, right?
Yeah, no. At the end of the day, this industry will not evolve with the new generation of charter guests, new owners. They're, much more aware of their emotions. They're much more, they've got different, whether it's sustainability, everything, so they want to feel like their crew is being looked after. And, we have moved on as a society. So things got to change, and there's more charter yachts in the water than ever before. And it's only going to, the rich get richer.
Keep going up.
It's only going to go up. I think I saw there's 400 or 500,000 ultra high net worths in the world, and they expect by 2025 there's going to be another 200,000 added. Not that they all charter, obviously, but yeah, it's there's 700 billionaires in the US currently.
Yeah. Well, we can all just end up becoming yacht crew then. We'll just have maybe 6 times as many yachts floating around, and the whole world could be on yachts.
Yeah, there's certainly obviously the industry is growing and growing, and charter and crew is obviously a huge part of that. So we've got to get better. So is there any more questions? Do you see?
No, I don't think so. I think they were just saying it's probably time for us to call it curtains.
Yes. Right. Well, remind everyone how we can find you, follow you, and also someone asked for your routine. So definitely share and so remind us again. Go.
Oh, perfect. Well, thanks so much, Claire. It's been great to be here. It's great to be. I've almost said great to be aboard. It's great to be here. If anyone wants to follow me, Super Yacht Sunday School. We've got a website, superyachtsundayschool.com. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook as well. Just shoot me a DM. I reply to every email message, so I'll be there. Yeah, definitely. And in terms of routine, a little bit what I alluded to before. Really big on like a little bit of meditation and yoga in the morning. If anyone's interested, there's a book called Deep Work, and it talks heavily about how you need to block your time and protect it. So you're kind of before the world touches me and before I get on all these technologically advanced things, if I need to do writing or I need to do a lot of my serious working and thinking, I'll go into that stretch. And then closer to the middle point of the day, after like 2 hours, then I like to go and do exercise, right? Whether that's a little bit of cardio, some HIIT, then, have a lunch, proceed to go into like another deep working session, right? Taking little micro breaks between, but working straight through. And, then unwinding after that. And then at the end of the day, just going maybe another physical activity, maybe go for a walk, things like that, really. And then at the end of the day, winding down again with meditation if I can.
Amazing. Hugo, you've been amazing. You've definitely inspired me to go and do at least 5 or 6 of these things and start lobbying people that I know.
Perfect. It's been great. It's been great chatting with you. It's been some really, really good conversations, and I hope everyone gets a lot out of it. I know I did.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're on mute. At least you're on mute to me.
Thank you, guys. This was an amazing session. Thank you both for your time, and Claire Hagen for making it out of after being evacuated out of a hotel in Monaco for April. Everyone, we're going to take a short break, a 2-minute break to stretch your legs, and then we will continue with body shaming on board.
Amazing. See you all.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I am super excited for our next session about body shaming, or let's rephrase it to body positivity. And letting you guys jump in right in with Emma Kate Ross from Seize the Mind, moderated again by Claire Hagen, and joined by the wonderful Deirdre Colgan from Yachtwear, from Nautilus Yachtwear.
Take a minute.
Hi.
Drink.
How are you guys doing? Thank you so much. So we want to do a short intro first, and then we'll get on to a very important topic. Because for me, like, you know, from coming into this industry, I was like, right, yeah, there's definitely a lot of things going on in terms of shaming people of how they look, how they dress, what the industry's like. So I'm super interested into seeing how we can obviously better people's thinking on this and educate people. So Emma, first.
Hi, my name is Emma Kate Ross. I am the co-founder and director of Seize the Mind. We are a mental health training provider. We bring mental health training to crew all around the world, on board and online. I originally studied psychology as my degree and then promptly abandoned it for 15 years on board boats as a super yacht chef.
Wow.
So I've finally gone full circle and I've come back
wow.
to yeah.
Oh, wow. So that's cool. Psychology and food, two very big important things.
Right?
Yeah.
I can pick you apart and then I can feed you.
Yeah. Amazing. And Deirdre? Is that I'm saying it right?
Yeah. No worries, Deirdre. I'm from Ireland originally. I studied architecture. I did that for a long time, and I got a job out in St. Martin where I met a lot of yacht crew, and I thought, why not give that a try? And so I was crew for 6 years, and I had some experiences, good and bad, and I kind of became an accidental advocate. When I launched the business, I had been on board and I had seen particularly more women come up on deck and not a lot of practical options for like a great short with a lot of stretch or room in the leg for them to be able to work as comfortably as their male counterparts. And then also I have a small waist, bigger boobs, bigger bum, you know, finding a skirt to fit wasn't always easy. So to me, it was a practical decision. When I launched the business, I did an article saying, hey, this is what I would like to do. And the reaction I got was not a practical one. And it made me look back on my own career and the things I had just accepted as normal. And I thought, well, why does this have to be normal? So I was reluctant to speak up because I am trying to sell into the industry. But at the same time, even if it starts off slower for me, I think if I carve that niche, and even if it just stays a niche, I'd be happier at the end of the day with that than, you know, if I can make more people feel like there's a place for them in yachting and they belong in yachting, and we have a crew shortage, you know, and I just, if you can come into yachting and feel good about yourself and be accommodated in uniform, then that's a good thing. And I also think that body positivity is for everyone. Like if you're tall and thin and blonde, you might be conscious that your boobs are too small or your teeth are crooked. So, so yeah, it was probably long-winded, but that's
no, and I think it leads on to obviously the big conversation we're talking about today. So so how do you think, you know, body positivity impacts mental mental health? Because obviously, you know, it's high pressure environment. We just spoke to Hugo about depression, obviously how you feel and how you look and you're working in these clothes. Like, okay, how can we start, you know, to how can we improve?
I felt for a long time, like when I started yachting particularly, I was 29 and I was in a crew house with girls who were 22 and who were tall and blonde. And I mean, at the time, I was very thin, but didn't think I would ever be thin enough because I had boobs and I had a bum and I'm only 4'11". So whereas I was a size 4 and they were a size 0, I was like, well, I should be a 00 because they're so much taller than me. And I just felt I didn't fit the mold. And I had crew agents tell me that. I did have a good friend who was saying there's a boat for everybody. And that's the message that I want to bring across. I also had a friend who wanted to start on deck and she was told, look, that's just not really a thing. Go and be a stewardess. And she tried for a year, but we all have bills to pay. So she eventually did go the stewardess route. But yeah, I mean, I remember joining my first big boat and the chief stew, and there was no harm intended. she said to me, "Oh, I was hoping the previous girl's uniform would have fit you, so I didn't have to go into the bilge." And just that feeling of like, oh, I've just arrived and I'm already getting it wrong, you know. And then, you know, I worked freelance on a boat, but it was for 3 or 4 months. And I was a size 4, which is a UK 8. And the chief stew was like, "This is the biggest size we have. And we're not getting you a new uniform. And we have an Italian chef and we have a crew mess full of snacks. So, you know, you're going to need to watch yourself."
There's just the way you're spoken to is just like outright, you know, HR complaint, like in any other, you know, onshore company. And obviously that's like we were talking about with Hugo, like it's moved on so much in the corporate world, you know, on yachting, like them kind of comments, like, you know, it's not right. Obviously, that's crazy.
And I think there's a lot of newer kind of more boutique crew agencies now. Like I remember signing up for some crew agencies and having to add my height and weight. And when I questioned it, they said, "Oh, it's for your uniform size." I supply uniform now. I cannot tell what size you are on the waist or on like if you're a small, medium, large by your height and weight, because everyone's weight is distributed differently. And then one of the questions I got was about tattoos, and I was like, "I have 2 tattoos, but you can't see them in uniform." So it's because they were like, "We need pictures of them," and I was like, "You can't see them in uniform. It's not a concern." And they were like, "Well, what if you were in a bikini with the guests?" And I was like, "Well, I'm not sure I want to be on a boat where like I'm in a bikini and one of them is like just under my bum." And she was like, "We're going to need a picture of that." And I was like, "I'm sorry, but I am not sending a picture of my arse across the internet so I can get a job. Like it's not happening." And I was 29, but there's girls coming into the industry who are 18 and 19. And as much as it had an effect on me because I had a history of eating disorders and low self-image anyway, how are these girls going to react to that? And since I started this, pretty much everyone in yachting was like, "Oh yeah, I had an eating disorder too," like either before yachting or in yachting. And I think there's such a level of perfectionism in yachting too, which I think is something, it's a character trait and a personality trait of people often with eating disorders. So I think they often become crew anyway, and then they're in an environment that really feeds into it. So I think there's so many factors that contribute to an epidemic of eating disorders amongst crew.
Yeah. And Emma, like, you know, in your experience, obviously similar, you know, I mean, in terms of the challenges that crew are facing and the language that people are talking to them. And like you said, you know, I mean, it's kind of an industry that lends to it just from the matter of being on a yacht and that whole Riviera sort of image.
I mean, yeah, totally. We can't deny that, you know, sometimes the crew uniform we are put into matches the deck cushions or matches the boat. We are very much seen as accessories to the boat. So that's really kind of disconcerting. And I think, you know, it's not just yachting, but we do tend to have a hyperfixation on body image, size. We want to promote all of that. And that's, you know, that's really problematic, especially for, you know, a lot of young people are coming into yachting. I'm originally South African, so we know there's loads of South Africans pouring in. We just talked about them in the last talk. But, you know, this is now what a lot of people are now choosing yachting instead of university. So this is the first time they're leaving home. They are on their own. They are dealing with all these kind of, you know, these comments about their weight, their size, and having to deal with it all on their own. It's their first job. They want to fit in. They need to kind of make money, like Deirdre said, but also they find themselves incredibly vulnerable away from home, away from anyone who can track to see if they are starting to kind of, you know, spiral a little bit, whether that's with depression, anxiety, or eating disorders, because we're just isolated when we're on crew. And every time you go onto a new boat, you can reinvent yourself. You can start again with anyone else. So that consistency of care is quite often lost in a transient industry like yachting. So my big concern is obviously the kind of the mental health implications of it. if you've got a really good, healthy kind of relationship with your body, you're doing all of the good things, exercising, you're strong, you know that the job requires a lot of energy, more energy than most people realize. So it always makes me really kind of like really worry when I hear girls going into a busy season or going into a crossing like, oh, I'm just going to be on like mango for the next 6 weeks, or I'm just going to do a Cetox. And I'm like, no. I want to kind of grab them and I'm like, you need energy. Your body needs energy, but they want to go into a deficit to kind of fit whatever mold is being told or being drip fed through social media. Social media is a big kind of problem here. We're seeing this numbers of eating disorders start to even kind of leach down into kind of younger preteens, which is just such a horrifying statistic. Hyperfixation on body image, social media, exposure to all that's not helping. So that's what makes me really worried, is the consequences of this this industry. And
and also I guess like, you know, you're not choosing what you eat as well, because a lot of it's handed to you. And like, is there, you know, ways we can maybe get better guidance, or like, you know, look, you know, because obviously you're on a boat that's maybe doesn't go to the dock for a certain amount. The crew, you know, we hope is obviously being thought of on the provision side. I mean, if you got any personal stories on obviously where from, you know, just in general observations on the body issues that have been on board where you've seen crew affected with the mental health and what they've been eating and how they've come off a season.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. Of course, you know, and this is the thing that's so unique to our industry. For most people, their relationship with food or exercise, it's going to be pretty private, at least kind of, you know, not being scrutinized by a chef, by their boss, by their stew. But we work on boats. Our life is different. So sometimes it can maybe exacerbate or exaggerate some of the problems we have with food, exercise, and our bodies, especially as, like Deirdre said, we kind of fetishize certain types of bodies. So that can be really problematic. And I've definitely seen that. I mean, just think about it. I think we can all look back and probably name someone on a crew or on a boat that had a problematic relationship with food. I mean, it's not just females. 75% of eating disorders are female, 25% are male. So it's not exclusively female, but it's predominantly female. But, you know, maybe there's that decky who didn't get to go and do his exercise, who's now kind of slamming cupboards in the crew mess because he's frustrated. He's all got that kind of stuff going on. That's also become kind of problematic. The one that's, you know, you're pushing out the way, that's always talking about supplements, or one lecturing us on food and sugar. All of this is going on, and it just wouldn't happen in a normal place of work. And from my point as a chef, I've always felt a huge amount of responsibility when it comes to food, making sure that people have options. Anyone that's ever worked with me will not tell you that I'm obsessed with rainbows. I always say eat a rainbow. I feel like you get your nutrients there. But even me, you know, like 10, 20 years into it, or 15 years into it, the last rotation I was on, we had a male chef and then we had me, the female. So we would rotate out. And the guys always loved the male chef's food. And then the girls would always, when I came on, they'd be like, oh, we're so excited to see you, because I would be making their kind of food. So even in there was a bit of disparity.
Wow.
And I just wanted to kind of like, you know, I wanted them to have the kind of the total coverage, because while we were on rotation, some of the younger crew were on 5-1, not 2-2. So we started a suggestion box, and rather than going up to the chef, depending on your relationship with the chef, we just had anonymous kind of suggestion box. And I would encourage people, please put food in there that you would like to eat. Please put meals or snacks that you would like to see in the cupboard. And some really good kind of things came out of it. They were like, only the engineers eat the cookies. Why do we have the cookies next to the coffee machine? The cookies could go into the cupboard so we don't have temptation. Brilliant. Engineers took a little bit of time getting used to it, but it was the majority rule. And it was also the same as well. You know, when I started it, when they started it, they wanted hummus and carrots and snacks and all of those kinds of things. And it was healthy. They were still eating. It wasn't as a substitute. But because we set it up on my rotation, then going into the next rotation where they would use it maybe as a substitute, because they didn't want the food necessarily, that more male food, more carb and more rich, whatever. Then they were like, oh, we've already started this system, so then they could carry it through and keep that continuity going. So that's what my kind of experiences have been like as a mental health first aider.
And what you eat really is sort of how you feel as well. You know, we're talking about obviously generally like how we feel in ourselves, and like, you know, when you are trying to improve, or, you know, say you want to lose weight or you want to change, that like feeling of what you eat and stuff, and how, you know, do you think, because it is like, you know, the crew, or so, do you think there's a lot of like, oh, she's eating this again, or oh, she thinks she's going to lose it? Do you think there's a lot of cattiness and judging? Whereas obviously with the way our industry is,
I mean, there's as many
Different
ways.
boat to boat.
Go on. Sorry, Deirdre, go.
Sorry to cut in. I found it differs boat to boat. I worked on one boat where the chief stew had a system that you had to sign out any snacks. So the snack cupboard, there was the chips, there was the cookies, and if you took anything out, you had to sign your name. And she said it was completely an inventory thing, so she could look at it and see how many there was. I had a system as chief like that with toiletries. You didn't sign your name. If you took a razor, you just put a dash. So I could look at it before I provisioned and say, okay, we only have 6 razors. And I had a red dot. And I was like, if we go below this amount. But you had to sign your name to it. So nobody wanted to eat the snacks. And also on my first big boat, the chief stew was very strict about the crew mess, about where anything was put. We couldn't keep any personal items.
Wow.
I always tried to be relaxed about the crew mess because that's your home. It's the only place you can go and be yourself. And, you know, when you go to Italy and you go to other countries and you go to a restaurant, you see a whole family there, 3-4 generations. There's no, here's the check, get out. If you come in at 6 o'clock, that table is yours for the rest of the night. And eating together is this shared experience. And I have been on boats where we did have that, and it was wonderful. And I've also been on the boats where you had to sign out snacks, and it was, comments were made, and it was just accepted. And I think it does kind of start with the captain, the chef, and the chief stew. I think they need to make the decision that this is a family environment. We eat together, we live together. And you know, a escort is $60-$70. You know, if somebody gets on and they put on a bit of weight, to replace a crew member is really expensive. And also, what damage have you caused to that crew member? And I do wish there was more. And I think what Emma Kate is doing is fantastic. And I do think there could be a better set of guidelines, particularly for very young, impressionable crew, on how to minimize food shaming, because you see a lot of it on boats. And like, different people come from different cultures and different backgrounds. And, you know, some people love a curry and some people are like, oh God, that smells so bad. And, you know, some people love fish and other people are, maybe are from an inland state where they don't eat a lot of fish. And one of the best things about being crew is traveling and going new places and getting new experiences, and food should be part of that. And unfortunately, people miss out on a lot of that because they're scared. I mean, I used to secretly buy snacks and have them in my cabin by myself because I was nervous of what people will think. And you know, I got a Dunkin' Donuts the other day and I threw everything in the wheelie bin before my husband saw it, you know, and it's not like he would think anything. It's just, it's kind of a habit because I got used to having to explain myself.
And that's the thing as well with the nationalities. It's a good point, you know, also judging that on the food side, and like what you find is a treat for you. Like, why should anyone shame you for that, or how they think you should be eating? And going on to, like, obviously you have a yachtwear company that focuses on size and practical clothing. Like, what was the moment that made you decide that like, right, I'm setting this up? Was it, obviously you've talked a lot about it, but was there like a certain, you know, point you were like, right, that's it, a comment? Or
I mean, when I started, it wasn't anything to do with different sized uniforms, because I had been an architect. I'm really good with all the graphics programs. Also, being Irish, I find it hard saying I'm good at anything, but you know, CAD is a vector, and when we were ordering uniform, often they're like, oh, we need this specific file type, we need this. And I was like, well, I can just make one. You know what I mean? So, and we had gotten a stern extension, and I redrew the boat so we could get the t-shirts before we left, because we didn't have the naval architect's drawings. And I just thought, and I sew as a hobby, and I just thought, God, I could do this. And there was me and one of the other stewardesses who just could never fit in the skirts. If they fit on the waist, they were too small on the thighs and bum. If they fit on the thighs and bum, they were too big on the waist, and our radios would pull them down. So I would take them in on the sewing machine to fit us. And I just thought, God, here's a practical thing. And then we had a female first mate, and we just couldn't find shorts that were moisture wicking and stretchy and, you know, had enough room in the thighs. I mean, and she was really athletic, strong girl, what you need to be the head of your deck crew. And why was there no uniform for her? So I just thought, you know, I'd love to get the money together and do something like that. And then when people started getting in touch, I was like, there is more of a need for this. So it was never supposed to be. I just was like, I have a husband, I have a son. I would like to work for myself and be, my husband's a captain, so he's sometimes gone. And so there's not that other parent to pick my son up. So I was like, it makes sense that I would work for myself so I can be flexible. And I just felt it was something I could do. And it was from other crew being like, yes, this is what we need. That, you know, and crew are really important to me. Like, I felt being part of a crew was just such a wonderful feeling. And coming from Ireland, where community is important and being part of your community is important, I just felt, you know, and I left yachting quite abruptly when I got pregnant, and I just felt alone. And I was like, here's a way to be kind of back in the industry. And now I would love it to be a community of places to go. But about 6 months after I started the business, my husband had a stewardess on his boat, and she was like a full-figured girl, like that, big boobs, big bum, stronger thighs, smaller waist. And I got to know her, and they were up north, and she was like, oh, just the fleeces, the rain jackets, you know, they make me look like a man. And I said, well, here's some styles that I would wear. And then she put a friend in touch with me who was like, hey, polos don't suit me. And I was like, well, they don't really suit me either. I wear more Henleys. And because I sew, I've kind of learned more about the proportions of the body. And, you know, my mother was always like, don't go for what's in fashion. Go for what suits you. Like, fashion will come and go. It's not necessarily going to look good on you. Know your body and know what suits you. So I kind of started recommending to people based on their body type, like, here's what's going to make you look good. And I know uniform is uniform. We all need to look the same. But, you know, there's brands like Ogio where there is the polo neck if you're a smaller chested girl, and then there's the same polo with a Henley if you're fuller chested. They're almost the same. And I would love also to start an initiative for new crew who are interviewing, because I always felt really self-conscious putting on the skirt and the polo. Particularly as I got older, I was like, I'm 35. You know, and I heard you on a podcast, Emma Kate, saying how you felt you were, you know, in your late 30s and you looked like you were playing junior netball. So that's another thing. There's, you know, that time limit for stews and pursers, I think, is extending. So maybe we could have something that is more appropriate if you aren't 19.
Yeah.
So,
and I think just to put you on that point, is that obviously, you know, the crew customization is needed, right? Because obviously, like you're saying, you know, and how you feel in that clothes, because you're wearing them, you know, every day, you know, for long periods of time, really then reflects how you feeling, you're shaming yourself, sort of thing. And then, you know, you're more paranoid. So I guess, do you think because of how, you know, we have got a crew like leaving all the time problem, they're just like, oh, I don't want to get new uniform all the time. You know, obviously that's part of the problem, isn't it? That we are not looking after our crew enough. And then, you know, we're putting them in a situation where, you know, uniform is just being made to fit one size fits all, isn't it, as well?
It is. And I mean, the big uniform companies, they have a good size range. Like, I'm not saying they fit everybody, but like, you know, the big uniform companies go up to 2 or 3 XL. Like, the options are there. A lot of boats just don't want to bother. I did speak to a few people about their experiences in yachting, and I did have a chief stew get in touch, and she said she's been on the boat years and years, and when she joined the boat, like, that eating disorder was very thin. She's the chief stew now. She's been on the boat years. She just orders herself bigger uniform. And I was like, what a practical solution. Like, why couldn't... And when you consider the amount of money that these boats cost, you know, and if somebody needs 4 new squirts, I mean, that's a few $100s.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, we're going on to obviously, like, okay, someone has got an eating disorder, and there's the questions now. If you hear someone throwing up, what steps do you take? How should we support people on board better with, you know, eating disorders, feeling, you know, not confident, all of these that obviously lead to all these other, you know, depression and stuff. Emma, how would you?
Well, living kind of the transient yachty lifestyle that we do, it can be difficult to seek the professional help that we need, but we're obviously growing awareness, and there's loads more resources available online. So help, support is always accessible. The first step is to recognize the problem. So if you are kind of the behavioral sign, if there's evidence of, you know, kind of eating disorders, lots of flushing after meals, anything like that, just make a note of those kind of psychological and behavioral kind of symptoms, and then it's about getting the person professional support, because with things like anorexia and bulimia, if there's no food going into the body, it's just not sustainable. And one of the things that I just really want to highlight, in case there is any kind of lingering kind of stigma, just a little course correction when we're talking about eating disorders. Yes, there is an element to do with food, weight, calorie counting, but actually what's going on is there's a huge amount of emotional distress or psychological distress that person is going through. So maybe it's their first boat, their first time away from home, they're getting bullies, they're getting harassed, and what's going on is they're out of control of their life. So I can't stop you know, the bullying, I can't stop the harassment on board. What can I control? I can control what I put into my body. I'm missing home, my parents have just said that they're getting divorced, I can't talk to anyone on the boat, I can't stop the fighting, I can't stop the divorce. What can I control? I can control what I put into my body. So understanding what is going on rather than, and realizing that it's a coping mechanism for many people that are going through huge emotional, intense distress. Eating disorders are a coping mechanism to help them get through it. They're just a very unhelpful coping mechanism. So I would, depending on your relationship with the person, if I hear someone throwing up in the cabin, specifically with eating disorders, if you're applying any kind of conversation, do it at any other time that's not around food. So you might have noticed something, or you might have just heard someone in their cabin. Pick another time, just choose any time, because going into meals, during meals, and after meals, defenses will be quite high. And then if you are going into this conversation, you're not a therapist. We've had some brilliant therapists, psychologists on before. You can always signpost them to people like Karine, some of the resources that we'll probably be putting in this chat afterwards. But if you are having that conversation, it's going to feel normal to feel nervous. Just kind of take a breath before you go in. And when you have that conversation, focus on the feelings. Don't reflect on their diets, their weight, how small or big they are. Just focus on the feelings, because ultimately that's what's driving the eating disorder. So ask kind of open questions like, what's going on? Is everything okay at home? How are you finding work? Are you fitting in? All of those questions will lead you potentially to the source of the eating disorder, which is the emotional distress. And if it is something that a person feels comfortable enough to talk to you about, just say, I'm so glad we had this conversation. I'm so glad you felt comfortable enough to tell me. Right, now let's look at some of the help we can get for you. And again, when you're offering help, if you are a mental health first aider on board or just a good crew member, you are not a therapist. You cannot unsafely pack that. That's for the therapist to do. So maybe just kind of throw out a whole load of different lifelines. I know that there's brilliant resources out there. If you look online at things like BEAT, BEAT, Beat Eating Disorders, is a brilliant one. In Australia, there's the Butterfly Foundation. In the USA, there's the National Eating Disorders Association. So offer all of those different resources to the person you're supporting and see what they want to do. Don't take over, don't do it for them, because we know when we're talking about longer, more sustainable recovery, it's when people are making positive choices in their life. And as we know, because it is a coping mechanism, maybe we want to bring that eating disorder down, but we want to bring up other coping mechanisms because they still need to cope with the distress. So maybe just identify things that make you feel good. Ask your crew member, what's the best way you can apply self-care? What's the first thing that comes into your head? Is that exercise? Is that watching a movie, rolling up like a little burrito in your cabin and watching movie? Whatever it is for that person, start promoting and encouraging and even doing those other helpful coping mechanisms. So hopefully as they're kind of accessing support, as they're just surviving the summer season, they can start bringing in helpful coping strategies that give them a better, more positive relationship with food. That's what I would suggest, but we can always help a little bit more afterwards.
Yeah, and also like that open questions, not like going to them with like, I've noticed you're doing this, or like you're already, you know, it's that like actually checking in first is the first step. Such good advice. And we've got some other questions. Are there issues with men's uniform as well, or is there more common for women because of the small sizes and skirts?
So one thing I did come across with, I had samples made for a range I want to produce. It's just getting the money together. So I'll have a women's straight range and a women's curve range. One of the things with men's uniform was the rise in the shorts are often quite short. And when they bend down to pick up something heavy, it's uncomfortable on the male undercarriage. I mean, I don't have man bits, so I don't know, but it's something I've taken on board. So just adding that extra half an inch in the rise. But I do have, like, I have a captain who is reordering uniform, and I said, oh, you know, the same. And he said, oh no, I'm going to need the 38s for me now and not the 36. And I was like, but sure, what harm? You've been in the yard, and you know, like, you know, he's in his 40s now. Like, it's, you know, and it's someone I've known for a long time. And he said it with as much emotion as like an 18 or 19-year-old stewardess would. So I think it is hard for the men too. And like, we've all been on those boats with the young workout guys who are in the tender garage on every break. And, you know, if you're not that guy, I think that also has to be hard.
Yeah. And I think bringing on to like, what can we do better as an industry to not only bring whatever you look like, whatever size you are, whoever age you are, how can we make it just normalize it like you would normalize any other workplace? You know, it's all about your skill and you're willing to work, and if you're, you know, good at the job in hand. So I think, is it the imagery we're using in marketing? Has, you know, obviously below deck, you know, that's like a lot of, you know, in terms of broader public, how they see yachting. I mean, how can we, what do you think we can do? Is it the recruitment, inclusivity, or do we need to, how can we improve?
I think having this conversation is a good start.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it did go back to old-fashioned crew agents at one point, but like, when I've been on well-run boats, you had safety meetings quite regularly. You had your head of department meetings quite regularly. And I think eating disorders and things like that should be brought into it. You know, I've spent most of my adult life. It's only really since I had my son that I was like, right, this, like, I don't want this to carry over.
Yeah.
I've really made an effort to knock it on the head. And like Emma-Kate said, like, I did permanent damage to my kidneys, and when people would be like, hey, you're going to damage your organs, I was like, oh my God. You know, because you're so caught up in that. Like, I have OCD and anxiety, so I do think that eating disorders were because they're such a controllable thing. And even as a newborn baby, the first thing you can control is what goes in your mouth. And even nodding yes and shaking your head no apparently come from how a baby latches to breastfeed, because the first thing they're in control of. So it's a really primal thing when you're dysregulated to deny yourself food. So I think when, you know, you've had that stressful season, or you've had the fire on board, or you've had problems in the yard period, or you've had the crew member who's gotten too drunk and it's been unsafe and they've had to have been let go, or worse things that happen in yachting, I think there needs to be part of the safety meeting a mental check-in for all crew. And I think for me, I think noticing what other people eat sounds like the worst thing ever. So I don't recommend being like, oh, well, somebody's eating less.
Yeah, that's part of the bigger, issues, spotting and drifting and,
With an open conversation, hopefully people will feel like, well, okay, I can say this. And often when you sign a contract, there's, if you get cancer, you get this amount of time. And I've seen contracts where it's like, if you have issues with addiction or alcoholism, you get to go away, you get this much, your job is secure. I just think if we had the same for eating disorders, because, I was on a boat once and we had problems with the bathrooms and I was making myself throw up and I don't know what happened. And then we couldn't use the bathrooms. I was using the sink and then everything back up to the sink. And there was like the lettuce and everything from lunch. And my biggest thing was like, I need to cover this up. Nobody can know. And I never open up. Like, my husband doesn't even know any of this. Like, I never open up about any of this. And I really did think last night, am I going to go there or am I not? And I was like, there's no way I can. And it was that freelance gig where they were like, well, we're not getting you bigger uniform. So I've never felt so trapped in my life. And my confidence was so low. And after that, at one point I took a break from yachting because I was struggling mentally. When I went back in, I made better decisions. I was like, I'm not just going to take the first job because I need the money. I'm going to wait and take a job that I feel like is good for me. And I worked on boats with great captains and great crew who were more aware of the impact of their words and their actions every day. And I just think there's a bit of an old school of yachting that unfortunately has to go, because you may be in yachting for 6, 7, 10 years, but you're going to live with it for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And you're managing so many different people under high stress and everyone's going through different things. So you really need to be almost a well-being coach on board, And I think teaching captains is probably the first port of call on eating disorders. And, if a crew member comes and doesn't feel confident to, approach or you, captain, can obviously have a certain responsibility. I mean, in terms of generally, how obviously there's so many things around, the stress in eating and brings on and, the body shaming. How do you think as an industry, then we should introduce like the check-ins that you were talking about? Who do you think we should, has a recommendation, do that check-ins? Is there even, I was even thinking when Hugo was talking, is there a helpline that needs to be created that's so independent? Because a lot of, I know a lot of industry helplines for other things, like construction have their own helpline for mental well-being. And, is there something? Yeah.
We have one. So rather than inventing something that's already done, ISWAN is an amazing resource. ISWAN, ISWAN, is free, multilingual, open 24 hours. They have specific a yacht crew helpline. They started with now they've specialized in yacht crew. And at the end of a phone line, you will get someone who's trained as a mental health professional. You can talk to them if you're lonely, if you are experiencing eating disorder, if you've been harassed, if you've got contractual issues. So that would be an incredible resource to definitely speak to and engage in. And they can also start to help you think about how you're going to manage it. And I think also just reiterating what Deirdre said as well, it really needs to start from leadership. If we want systemic change in the industry, we have to acknowledge it, we have to identify it, then we have to acknowledge it, and then we need to start challenging it. And that can only really be done by leaders, by people who have confidence, by people who've got skin in the game. Younger people are coming through, maybe they stay, maybe they don't. They're not going to be able to kind of make an impact in that small time. But it is, you know, once you've made it a profession, maybe like Deirdre and myself, or maybe everyone, you've gone out of yachting and you've come back in, you're like, actually, no, I deserve to be here, and I'm actually going to leave on a high note. So it's up to us. Conversations like this. There's some amazing resources, like I said, some really brilliant body positivity people out there. And just remember, I know we have to wrap it up soon. There's two things I want to just remind everyone, especially the women as well. Don't make yourself small. Do not make yourself small for anyone else. We are, you know, you have a right to be here. Own that space. That's so important. And also just remember, Deirdre and I were chatting before, and when she was talking about kind of fashions, body types change all the time. I've gone from, you know, the 80s where it was all very thin, 90s where it Kate Moss kind of heroin chic, and now we're with Kim K and all those beautiful curvaceous bodies. So if your body's not in now, just wait a year. It probably will be in a couple of years. So don't make yourself small, and body types change all the time. So just accept and love your body and nourish it the way you would nourish anyone else.
That's such an amazing advice. And this has been such a very personal, open session. I really appreciate it. I think also, you know, look, you know, I think the industry itself really needs to obviously change the images that are being put out there, right? Because people see an image and they think that they're not part of it because, and I think, you know, it starts with obviously the yacht companies and the things we put out broadly. So how do we keep in touch with you guys? How do we find more? So obviously, you know, yacht wear and all the things you're doing with the customization, and Emma, you know, where do we follow you guys? How do we keep in touch?
So I'm at Nautilus Yachtwear. So Instagram and Facebook is at Nautilus Yachtwear. You can email me at info@nautilusyachtwear.com. And if you're somebody who's starting out, doesn't feel confident going into an interview, get in touch. We can pick you an outfit. You can borrow it, do your interview. If you're on a boat, something I do is I will, because I work completely online. If you want, I will send the next size up and the size before. So I could send you 2 or 3 sizes. You can pick the size that you feel comfortable with. I'll send a shipping label, send the rest back. So you can try it on in the comfort of your cabin. And, you know, you're not just a number on an inventory. You can get a uniform that fits you. So yeah. You can also call me 954-408-1747. Even if you've had a rough day and you're not feeling very confident, send me a WhatsApp, send me a text, and get in touch. I've been there. I'm not here to sell people things. I'm here for that young person who's not had a good go of it in yachting and is considering whether it's for them. You've got so much to bring to a boat, and you've just been speaking to the wrong people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Emma, where can we find you?
I just want to say, what a queen, Deirdre, you are.
I know. I was like, oh my God.
So lucky to have you. I definitely didn't have you. So thank you for sharing that. If you want to get in touch with me, obviously, if any of these kind of factors have affected you or something's come up for you, or you're starting to realize that you might need to have these conversations, we do mental health training. So we teach you how to have these conversations. We give you the knowledge and confidence to go into these conversations. So I would say that it's brilliant for all yachties, but especially pertinent if you're an HOD or moving into a kind of HOD role. So you can find us on Instagram at Seize the Mind, and our website is seizethemind.co.uk. You can find all my details and get in touch with me there, which is Deirdre just said. So look after yourselves and look after each other.
Oh, thank you both so much. I'm like literally so touched by both of you. I think it's amazing. Especially, I mean, it's just incredible. Like, you know, and it needs that really personal approach that this industry needs of people who care and have been in it, you know, and can be relatable. Thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
And if anyone needs a referral for eating, so I have a colleague. Oh, okay, so someone's reaching out as well on I think it's on YouTube, Shell. But yeah, anyway, like, love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for guiding us on that amazing conversation, Claire. That was so powerful. It's so important to talk about body shaming. As you guys heard, it's not only affecting women, it's also affecting men. And it goes not only from the uniforms, but all across, from how people feel and how, if they even feel that they are allowed to speak up. So without further ado, we're going to move on to our next session, which is a wonderful meditation workshop that you guys get to enjoy. But as usual, we have a 2-minute break for you guys to move around. See you guys soon. Hi, everyone. So now we're going to end today's session, today's forum, with a meditation session with Geraldine Hardy. Please embark on a guided journey to inner tranquility amidst the challenges of yacht life. Discover techniques for peace and resilience. And here we go.
Namaste, Namaha. So, welcome to your guided meditation. I'm really sorry that I can't be there live. I will be traveling at that time because going back to the Tai Chi workshop training in Shaolin Temple YIR tomorrow. So enjoy the meditation. There are various different meditations out there and many different ways to roam. So please, this is a stepping stone for you to try out to meditate. Namaha, Namaste. Welcome to your meditation practice. My name is Geraldine Hardy, and I'm the host of Self-Care on Board on Yachting International Radio. Today I'd like to offer you a guided meditation practice. Why is meditation of essence in your self-care toolbox? Meditation directly works with your nervous system, with your mind obviously, your emotions, and your physical well-being, and also your spiritual well-being. Meditation taps into all of the dimensions of oneself, multidimensional being. And we need to address all of these layers. And with a meditation practice, you can address all of these layers of oneself. Even if you just meditate 2 or 5 minutes per day and you start slowly and you get used to it. There are many meditation practices, a guided meditation, or you just put headphones on, Dr. Joe Dispenza, binaural beats. There's so many of different meditation practices you could find on YouTube. The question is, just find time to sit down for 5 minutes and really focus at that very moment on yourself. Meditation is the key to regulate your nervous system. especially when your nervous system is in a constant fight and flight mode. That is the part of our central nervous system, also called sympathetic nervous system. When you are stressed and you're continuously stressed throughout the day, throughout the weeks, throughout the months, especially in charter season, your body will also feel the stress. It's not just going to be mentally and emotionally, it will be your entire being. Meditation can help you to alleviate the stress by producing the happy hormones, including serotonin. It can help you to sleep better while it produces melatonin. And it can help you to deal with stress better and make you more resilient because you can get a deep rest. The nervous system is key for our own well-being to be really in a state of homeostasis. This means balance. That means equanimity. That means you are able to respond during the day rather than react. You don't get necessarily triggered through any actions of someone else, what someone else said. So the external circumstances have not necessarily power over your internal well-being. And this is key, to find peace within, to stay in a higher vibration and frequency level, to understand when a thought comes in, which could be negative, and knowing now how to switch and pivot and invite a positive thought that can support your manifestation, manifesting exactly the things you would like to see in your life and feel in your life. So meditation is a great tool. And in today's meditation, I will speak to you about golden liquid light. This meditation is used within our alchemy healing practice that I have learned as a teacher in a training. It's a quantum healing practice, which is like a light hypnosis, but you will not get into a hypnosis today. But that just allows you to tap into the deepest emotions within, to understand a little bit more oneself, and to also feel protected. The golden liquid light is your protection shield that you can always return back to throughout your day. And sometimes we just need to ask, whatever you believe in, spirits, guides, God, divine, sometimes you just need to ask for a little bit of protection or just have my back. And trust or believing in something higher than oneself is important, but you can meditate no matter if you're religious or spiritual. It just helps you to understand your mind better and to also release and let go. So please just follow my voice, and if you find yourself straying away with your thoughts, try to come back to your breath, to my voice, and it's perfectly fine. Now the meditation can be done lying, seated, or standing. When you are standing, take your feet really firmly on the ground. So if you're like on deck, maybe take your shoes off and feel really the teak underneath your feet. Make sure that you're undisturbed, and make sure you feel safe and protected and secured. This is your time. This is not going to be a long meditation, and it's going to be very easy to follow. Now, before we start meditating, I like to just offer some simple movements so we can start engaging your parasympathetic nervous system. Your parasympathetic nervous system is that part of your nervous system that allows you to rest and digest and relax. And we need this part of the nervous system, especially when you live in a very high intensity job, or if you work on a constant basis and you have long stressful hours. You need to find your homeostasis and rebalance again and get into the rest and relax stage. We're going to engage your spine, engage 7 movements of your spine. Why is this important? It is important because the spine is a communications transmitter system and directly linked to your nervous system. And we're going to do this with the synchronization of your breath. Your breath is exactly a great tool to control and regulate your nervous system and also to help you to enter into the state of meditation. I hope you enjoy it, and let's begin. So now when you're seated, you can lie down and have a pillow, like this pillow, underneath your knees, so you feel a little bit more comfortable around your back. So it would be this way, and lying down. If you're seated and you come into a cross-legged position, please just take a pillow underneath your sit bones so you have your hips higher than your knees, and you just feel like it's more relaxed when you sit here for a while. If you are standing, keep your feet grounded onto the floor, relax your shoulders, and release your knees slightly. If you are seated on a chair, have your sit bones really nicely firm on the chair. You can lean a little back if you have a backrest, or just try to keep your spine straight and release your shoulders, and always release the hinge of your jaw. That is one of the most powerful muscles in our body. Now, I'd like you to first move your body. Seated on the floor, standing, or seated on a chair. I'd like you to inhale and you open up your chest forward and you look slightly up, so you arch your back. And exhale around your spine back, so really hollow here your abdomen area. Inhale, open up your chest forward. Exhale, round back. Inhaling. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Great. Now inhale, extend the crown of your head towards the sky. Relax your shoulders. You're going to inhale, lift your left arm up. Exhale, reach all the way to the right. Now create just a little bit length here in the left side of your body. Relax your right shoulder and inhaling, reach. Exhale, release. Now inhale, come back to the center. Lift your right hand up. Soften here your right shoulder. Exhale, reach all the way to the left. You can look here to the side, release your left shoulder. And inhale, come back to the center. From here, we're going to inhale, extend your spine. Exhale, twist to your right. Look over your right shoulder. Inhale, lengthening. Exhale, twist. Inhale, come back to the center. Inhale, lengthening. Exhale, twist to your left. And come back to the center. Good. So we have moved our spine in all 7 directions. Now we can start the meditation. So make yourself very comfortable. If you want to lie down, please lie down. In case you do fall asleep, then your body may need that sleep. Allow it to happen. No problem. Sit down, relax, and comfortable. Perfect. So take yourself time, get yourself really nestled in, make yourself entirely comfortable. And when you have arrived in a position
that is exactly that position you can stay for a while. I'd like you to inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. 5 times. Inhaling through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Continue on your own. Now every time when you inhale, try to create space between your collarbones. And when you exhale, try to release your body a little bit more. Your shoulders, your sit bones, your fingertips. And now we're going to change the breath slightly. Now I'd like you to inhale into your abdomen area. Hold your breath. Exhale, release. Inhale into your abdomen area. Hold your breath. Exhale, release. 2 more times in your own rhythm. So really create a space in your abdomen area when you inhale. And when you exhale, I'd like you to release a little bit more. Using your breath to create space and to release. Great. From here, I'd like you to imagine a golden liquid light. Now this golden liquid light is above your head and it's just moving around. It's beautiful and shimmery. And you slowly can feel how the golden liquid light enters through the crown of your head, going through your brain, washing here away any negative thoughts, going through your head, so entering your eyes, releasing here any tension around your eyes, your nose, going through your mouth, washing here away anything that was held in your mouth. And just feel the golden liquid light filling up entirely your head. And just feel how your head becomes lighter and lighter. Now the golden liquid light enters your throat. And it feels really light. It feels like refreshing, washing away here any words that have been unsaid. And you can feel the golden liquid light entering the back of your neck, releasing here your neck, any tension you may be holding here. Now the golden liquid light enters here the tops of your shoulders, going through the sinews, releasing here any tension you may have held here on top of your shoulders, between your shoulder blades, any weight that you may have carried here. Just feel how this weight releases from your shoulders. Now feel the golden liquid light entering your upper arms, your elbows, your forearms, and your wrists. Going through each one of your fingers, fingertip by fingertip. And you can feel how your arms, the entire arms with your fingers and hands, are filled up with this beautiful golden liquid light. It just feels light. It feels like that you have been carrying heavy bags and you have released them. Now the golden liquid light enters here, your chest, going through around your collarbones, your lungs, any toxins that have been held here. Let the golden liquid light wash it away. Wash them all away. The golden liquid light reaches here between your shoulder blades. Any tension you have been feeling here, let the tensions be washed away. Now the golden liquid light enters here, your heart space. Now if you have a wall around your heart space, allow the golden liquid light to enter your heart and let this wall be washed or melt away with this beautiful light. You don't need this wall anymore because we're going to give you protection outside of your body, and you don't need to protect your heart anymore. Now feel how it feels like to feel this beautiful golden liquid light in your heart space. Washing here away any emotions you have held and just be renewed. Now the golden liquid light enters your stomach area, your solar plexus, the center of your power, the center of your gut. And just let the golden liquid light wash away any toxins, emotions you may have held here, because they no longer serve you. Let the golden liquid light fill up the stomach area, the liver, the kidneys, and just feel how it feels like to let go of a load of anything that does not serve you anymore. Now the golden liquid light enters here your intestines, going through the intestines, washing away any toxins, emotions you have held here. Going further down to your reproductive organs, and any stories you have held here, they do not longer serve you. Let the golden liquid light wash them away. Now feel how it feels like to have this beautiful golden liquid light in your lower body. Reaching down to your root chakra, to your sacrum, the center of protection and security within, knowing that you have this security and this protection within. And feel how it feels like, how the golden liquid light fills up this whole area around your hips. Going further down, your legs, your upper thighs, your knees, your calf muscles, and your ankles, entering each toe one by one. Now the golden liquid light is all over. It's in your entire body. Releasing any tension you may have held in your legs, knowing that you're always supported within. Now feel how it feels like to feel this beautiful liquid light. Knowing that you are a being of light. And you're now filled up with this beautiful golden liquid light. Now the golden liquid light enters the ground, the earth, going down to the center, the core of the earth, of this planet, rooting and grounding you, and you feel this nice earthy grounding, knowing that you're always between the ground, the planet Earth, and heavens. Now I'd like you to bring this golden liquid light back up from the core of the earth, through your feet, your legs, your stomach, your upper body, your throat, through the crown of the head, back up to the heavens. Now feel how it feels like, this alignment between heaven and earth, and you are being in this alignment and part of this alignment. Now I'd like you to imagine a multi-dimensional star also called a Merkaba in sacred geometry. It's a pyramid facing up to the heavens and a pyramid facing down to the earth. I'd like you to enter into the star, sit in it, and feel a beautiful energy around you, knowing that the star is your protection shield and only allows love and light in, not only now, but for the rest of the day, for the entire duration, when you ever think about this beautiful star. Now I'd like you to go into your heart space and open up your heart space. Allow this beautiful golden liquid light within you to shine all around, like a lighthouse. And feel how it feels like that you have this beautiful light that you share with your loved ones, with your peers, while you're protected in this beautiful multi-dimensional star. Now feel how it feels like. Peace, love, lightness, balance, gratitude. Feel how it feels like to be grateful, to have this beautiful light within you. Now you know that you're always protected and you have this light within you and you shine it, you share it with your surroundings. So I slowly take you back now. I'd like you to get back into your body and slowly feel your toes and your fingertips. Create small movements. Now feel your hands and your feet. Create small movements. Feel your arms and feel your legs. Slowly moving them. Become aware of your hips, your stomach, your chest, and your abdomen. Create movement. Feel your breath. Now feel your facial muscles and slowly move your entire body. And when you're ready, open up your eyes and come back to a seated position. So this was an example of a guided meditation. There are many ways to row. Many practitioners have different tastes of modalities and guided meditations and movement practices. And it's up to ourselves to find what works for oneself. With regards to this meditation practice, throughout the day, always remember you have this multi-dimensional star around you, a protection shield. Knowing that it can allow love and light in. The more you practice meditation, the more you become aware of oneself, of yourself, and of things happening around you. And that sometimes things do not seem the way how they are. And it just creates, it further develops your intuition, your consciousness level, and increases your frequency and vibration. To then also work with your emotional and mental well-being. It's all connected. So body, mind, soul, spirit, we are way more divine that we anticipate and that we realize. So the meditation practice just allows us to remember who we truly are. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please contact me anytime on Instagram. And this is one of many meditation practices that I can guide you through, and start just experimenting what works for you. I wish you a beautiful rest of the day, and Namaha, Namaste.
Hi, everyone. I hope you guys had a wonderful meditation and end of our first day of the conference. I want to thank you all for joining us on the first day of Yachting International Radio's Mental Health Forum. It's been a privilege to have you with us as we explore some of the most critical mental health topics in yachting. Your participation and engagement has made this event truly special. For those who couldn't join us live, remember that the sessions will be available on demand after the forum is over. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow for another session of insightful discussions, meaningful conversations, and our wellness workout session at the end of the day. We will continue to deep dive into mental health topics that matter, with more sessions led by our fantastic panel of experts. We would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to our event sponsor, Superyacht Fitness, and our supporting sponsors, Ice One, ATPI, The Crew Coach, The Yacht Dame, The Gap Counseling, Yacht Mermaids, Align Within, Yachting USA, and Beat Library. Thank you once again, and we hope to see you back here tomorrow.